For Newcastle United in the breezy conditions here on Tyneside, 12 minutes played, 0-0. Eddie Howe out of his technical area. That's the one thing that this position does give you, is a real sense as to how the managers are feeling, as we're so close behind them here in the press box. Particularly, I remember during the pandemic, we did games here together then. I mean, you could hear them
giving out their orders.
Everything.
Yeah, but for me, this is magnificent. As a coach, to sit here and see the panoramic view of the pitch and all the rotations and the movements and the press. You get a full picture of these top players and how they're coached and how they work. And the football is, simply sublime at the minute from both teams.
Don't worry, I'm sure very soon you'll be in a dugout back doing what you love.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next challenge, to produce another high-performing team at some stage then.
13 minutes played. Neil Lennon with us here, twice a winner of this competition during his days at Leicester, and in fact in the Scottish League Cup he won it 3 times, twice as a player and once as a manager at Celtic. But here we are watching a team, Manchester City, who've dominated it in recent seasons. They've lifted the trophy in 6 of the previous 10. Sergio Gomez on the halfway line. Left-footed ball, excellent distribution out towards Grealish. The touch from Grealish was a good one. It was a forward movement, held up though by Livramento. Ake is on the inside. He goes further square. Phillips is going to shoot. Blocked by Dummett. Goes out to the left corner of the area. Back towards Grealish once again. Rolls it towards Ake. He plays it back out to that left-hand side. Left corner of the area. Short and square once more for Ake. Plays it a little bit back behind himself there towards Phillips. But Manchester City keeping the ball and at the moment trying to find a way through. Still 0-0 on BBC Radio 5 Live. Alvarez tried to make the run. Cut out by Lascelles. And Livramento should deal with that. But he comes under pressure and he's helped out by Lascelles. I mentioned that game at Sincil-Banks on Sports Extra. Chris Coles is keeping us up to date here.
Ball in the West Ham net, but the flag up on the far side, preventing Lincoln taking the lead. They've had a good 5 minutes. Ball pinging around the penalty area. Fell to Alex Mitchell, who tapped in and then looked agonisingly to the offside flag on the far side. Good game this. Lincoln 0, West Ham 0.
Guardiola to Ake, Grealish. Newcastle at the moment can't get a touch.
No, this is what Man City do. And like I said, it doesn't matter who the personnel or who the formation is. This is what Guardiola's teams do. You have to stay patient. You have to wait until you can steal the ball and maybe counter-attack on them. But they will wear you down if you're not careful.
Guardiola out to Grealish. Bobbles for him.
That's very uncharacteristic, isn't it?
Out
you can see the disappointment in Guardiola. It's not like them to give the ball away cheaply like that.
So it'll be a Newcastle United throw that Livramento is going to take. They signed him for £32 million from Southampton after that terrible injury in April of last year. This is only his 3rd appearance for the England under-21 international, as we will go to Brentford now and Mark Scott.
And Mikel Arteta's much changed Arsenal side still lead by that Reece Nelson goal to 0. Very close to doubling their advantage as well. Smith Rowe, his first start since May 2022, jinked his way into the area. The low effort well blocked by the feet of Flecken. Brentford 0, Arsenal 1.
Tonali's forward ball, Guardiola effortlessly just steps out of defence and makes the interception. I mean, he's so versatile, Guardiola, left back or central defender. Now all of a sudden it's his fellow Croatian Kovacic who's gone charging forward down the left-hand side, holds onto the ball, waits for the support. It arrives in the shape of Grealish. Grealish now, Kovacic is going to make that run behind him on the outside. Grealish though will not use him, now he will. Coming in off that left touchline, City playing from left to right. Now with Phillips, 30 yards out from goal. He goes square. Rico Lewis will stab it back. Guardiola. Every outfield player is in the Newcastle half. Ake on this occasion provides the width on the left as Grealish has gone into a central area. They always just seem to have so many options.
Brilliant. And not only that, this is where they're so good. They'll probably give it away now, but they'll wear you down and they look for the openings. They'll come out, they'll stretch the game, they'll go one side to the other effortlessly. Because they're all good players and in control of the speed of the pass and the weight of the pass.
There was just a passage of play there whilst you were talking. Rico Lewis has passed the ball back to Akanji, and you've got a young lad who's telling a Swiss international, as now the ball's forward towards Bob. And here is Oscar Bob. It opens up for him. He feeds it into Alvarez. The rebound is cleared away. You were thinking, why didn't Oscar Bob go for goal himself?
Yeah, he's so unselfish. What a brilliant passage of play, but this is what they do. The patient, and then boom, three quick passes and they're in. And Oscar Bob, instead of going himself when the goal opened up for him, he tries to be cute and reverse it to Alvarez. And in the end, Nick Pope makes a decent save, but the pass from Bob wasn't necessary. And he put Alvarez a little bit wider, and Pope sticks out a big right foot and saves it. But what a scintillating bit of football, Ian.
Pope in the end with an outstretched leg kept out the effort from Alvarez. I think, judging by the actions of Guardiola in the technical area, he was saying what we were saying. Why didn't Bob go for goal?
Yeah, he's just picked the wrong option. You know, he's trying to be unselfish, the team player, and really he should have just taken on his left foot and smashed it.
Here is Grealish.
Or if he was going to do that, he'd make the pass to Alvarez a little bit narrower, because he sort of put him a little bit wider when he didn't have to.
First opening though that has been created. Although Manchester City have dominated with possession, maybe they could have been ahead, and instead it's with Gomez now on this right hand side again. He'll cut into his left foot. Here is Lewis. The point I was about to make is that Lewis was telling Akanji where to play the ball. You've got to
I have to say, I've been so impressed with that kid already. He started the game, his reading of the game, his passing, his instinct to be in the right position and looking around him before the ball comes to him. So impressed with him, and you can see that education under Guardiola blossoming here.
And the confidence of the young players too.
Absolutely.
Here is Lewis to Akanji. Here is Sergio Gomez. You know, we've worked together on a Saturday on a few occasions, haven't we? And you know how sometimes frantic it can be, and I'll go, where shall we go next? And that's my cue to the producer, basically saying I've forgotten. I haven't got that excuse. But thankfully I've just remembered, and it's John Southall at Chelsea.
Thank you, Dano. Chelsea 0, Brighton 0. Another chance for Brighton. Again, poor distribution for Robert Sanchez. Ansu Fati dispossessed Caicedo. Sanchez redeemed himself with a save to his left. Chelsea 0, Brighton 0.
Ball played through the middle. Sergio Gomez looked like he was starting from an offside position, but the interesting aspect tonight is that there's no VAR.
There's no VAR tonight. No. I think he looked offside anyway, regardless. The ball from Alvarez was overhit, but the touch that Ortega pings it to Alvarez, but his first touch was sublime. He just overhit the pass. It was a great run from Gomez there.
I think Wolves had a late goal disallowed last night. They would have made it 3-3, but of course there was no VAR, and Gary O'Neill was absolutely livid at the final whistle as they were dumped out by Ipswich by 3-2. So we lost 3 Premier League sides last night. We're going to lose at least 4 tonight, because this is one of all 4 Premier League sides. Another one is at Brentford. Mark Scott.
And Brentford have had a big chance to level. A low swept ball in from the right found Johan Wissa. His first time strike was wide. He should have at least hit the target. Brentford 0, Arsenal 1.
Here is Tonali in the centre circle. Lifts it out to Livramento, waits for the ball to settle, plays it forward. Heavy touch by Murphy. They've given the ball away as a result. Now it's with Kovacic, who tries to hold off Murphy and does so. That was a sharp little turn by Bob. He did ever so well, Oscar Bob. You'll be hearing a lot more of him, I'm sure, the young Norwegian. Lewis now towards Sergio Gomez. He bypasses Lewis on this occasion to find Calvin Phillips. And now it's with Ake along the ground, out towards that left-hand side on a damp, breezy night in the northeast. Phillips spreads it out towards this side. Manchester City for the opening 20 minutes up to 70% in terms of possession. Rico Lewis chips it over the top, away from Kovacic and through to Nick Pope. Blackburn Rovers, there's been a third goal of the night at Inwood Park, and Blackburn Rovers are back in front. Blackburn 2, Cardiff City 1. What about at Anfield? What sort of a response from Liverpool? John Bennett.
Yeah, they should be level. Liverpool 0, Leicester City 1. Ben Doak hitting the bar from just a few yards out. Then an amazing goal line clearance by Connor Cody after a Gakpo header, but it's Liverpool 0, Leicester City 1.
He's just some prospect, isn't he, Ben Doak?
Oh, he's a good young player. He's only
ball through the middle.
Oh, brilliant.
Grealish. Challenge made by Dummett was a very good one. Very good challenge, because Grealish played through the middle, just inside the D in the penalty area. Dummett had to get there.
That's an outstanding challenge. But again, you see that little interchange of speed of play between, I think it was Bob and Kovacic, and then the run from Grealish. and he's almost in. Absolutely magnificent defending from Dummett, but you feel something's coming in a minute. You know, the West City are really sort of not only just passing the ball for the sake of it, but they're trying to praise and suck Newcastle out, and there's a variation to their attacks as well, whether they go short or long, in third man running. There's so many variations this Man City team tonight.
The voice of Neil Lennon midway through the first half on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Newcastle United 0, Manchester City 0 in this League Cup third round tie. Elsewhere, Villa 0, Everton 1, Blackburn 2, Cardiff 1. No goals between Bournemouth and Stoke City. Arsenal are ahead at Brentford by 1-0. It's goalless at Stamford Bridge between Chelsea and Brighton. Fulham lead Norwich by 1-0. Lincoln 0, West Ham 0. Commentary of that's on Sports Extra. Liverpool 0, Leicester City 1. Here is Bob picking the ball up, diagonal run, lays it off, Kovacic out towards Grealish, outstretched right leg, brings it under control. Ake on the overlap, not utilised, left corner of the area, now slips it into the path of Ake. He goes back inside towards Kovacic. In the Scottish League Cup, Hibs 0, St Mirren 0, Ross County 0, Aberdeen 1, Ross County down to 10 men. Rangers lead Livingston by 1-0. You're up to date on BBC Radio 5 Live. Here is Phillips chipping the ball out towards Grealish at a standstill midway through the Newcastle half. Now with Kovacic, back with Phillips. Rico Lewis, the right back, playing as a midfielder in a forward position of the centre circle in the Newcastle half as Gvardiol steps forward out of defence and left-footed finds Grealish. Manchester City, Livramento did well. He might have got a dead leg though for his efforts as he stood up to Grealish, got a foot into the challenge. Newcastle want the ball put out of play.
You can't
just play. It's not a head injury.
You can't. He's all right. He's up. He's jogging about. You got to get on with the game. I'm sorry. It was a good tackle. He came off a little bit worse. That's all.
Sergio Gomez. Now it's with Phillips. Joe Linton stops the return ball to Sergio Gomez. You felt the quandary that Rico. Excellent play by Lewis. Stepping in. Lewis now towards the byline, right hand side. Overruns it. Does he? No. Stays in play. Murphy. He overhit it. He was in a quandary though because the crowd were telling him to put the ball out. He didn't know what to do, the poor lad.
Yeah, and then I think Guardiola was, asking him to put it out as well. But Rico Lewis did the right thing. He stood on the ball, he waited, he never meant to go back up, but it just stopped the whole momentum of the move for a minute or two.
Here is Gvardiol. They're on top, Manchester City, but they've only had that one chance for all of their possession, with Pope saving from the legs of Alvarez. Good support that has travelled though from across the Pennines. It's a journey, of course, that Pep Guardiola will have to take in the coach. He wasn't happy about that, was he? Unable to fly back.
Yeah.
Instead, what is it, 140 odd miles that they're going to have?
I've never done that, Ian. Flew from Manchester to Newcastle. Didn't you have?
No, neither have I.
What are you laughing at?
Here is Oscar Bob. They'll get back at about 1 in the morning. It's a journey that many of the Manchester City supporters will, of course.
I was hoping the BBC would provide me with the plane back to Glasgow, but I've got to drive back.
Days of sustainability, those days have long gone. Here is Rico Lewis to Calvin Phillips. Lewis, Hall putting him under pressure, and Ake keeping the ball ever so well. Triangular passing movements from Manchester City. Newcastle have spent the most of this 25 minutes chasing.
Oh, brilliant.
Kovacic to Ake. Ake searches forward out of defence. Grealish out to the left-hand side. Enters the penalty area. Grealish can't get a sight of goal. Finds Kovacic. Kovacic shot charged down by Tonali. Loops up in the air and attacked and headed away by Lascelles. Newcastle are on the back foot. Here is Gvardiol.
Wonderful football. The ball from Akanji into Ake, and then he's into Oscar Bob, and they're away again on the half turn. Really good. They suck Newcastle out and then play through them time and time again. They're wearing Newcastle down here, Ian.
Here is Kovacic. Now with Gomez. Back inside now to Phillips. Gomez taking time to get a run himself in the City side since he arrived. Sergio Gomez for £11 million from Anderlecht. Spanish under-21 international. Newcastle United get a little bit of respite for a foul on Tonali. It'll be a free kick, and that's what it is, respite.
That's all it is. Take a breather. But as a coach, it's still so difficult to attempt to do anything against this, because just the quickness of speed of pass, the quickness of the feet in when you're actually taking the ball and just getting there before you're trying to press. They're just very, very good. Well, they're brilliant at it, actually.
We'll nip to Fulham. Kelly Summers.
Still Fulham 1, Norwich 0. Vinicius' second goal of the season. The difference between the sides, he should have had a second. There's been so many dangerous balls put across the area, but he wasn't able to convert. Norwich with just one shot. McCallum straight at Rodak. 1-0 to Fulham.
Spoke with Steve Cooper after the game at the weekend, after Nottingham Forest, and to be fair, Forest gave, after the Rodri sending off, they did give City a bit of a test. City defended well, and Kyle Walker was saying about a different level that they saw, the determination and the resilience that sometimes certainly you're not going to see maybe tonight the way it's going, as the ball is spread out towards Grealish, and Grealish comes in off that left touch line now with Kovacic, left corner of the area. Oscar Bob lays it off, lovely up towards Alvarez. The angle is tight and he fires it across the face of goal, and it's out for a throw. But again, super play.
Someone for a minute I thought it was in, and it does, it splashed right across the goal, but the angle was so narrow. But what a lovely first time touch from, but it looks like, oh no, it's I thought it was a City throw-in for a minute. Pope better got something on it, but it's gone for Newcastle. But what a lovely first time pass from Bob. I mean, that's really high football IQ from a young player there.
Aberdeen are 1-0 up at Ross County. Rangers leading at home to Livingston, and now a first goal of the night at Easter Road. Kenny Crawford.
43 minutes gone, Ian, and it's Hibs 0, St Mirren 1. A wonderful strike from left back Scott Tanser, left footed from the edge of the box. Mikael Mandron headed down to him, and Scott Tanser, who's won the League Cup with St Johnstone a couple of years ago, could have scored the goal that's put St Mirren in the semi-finals. Long way to go, but St Mirren lead Hibs 1-0 at Easter Road.
They've had an excellent start to the season, St Mirren.
Yeah, my boy's there.
Is he?
So, yeah. So he's full time there now. So I've been going to a few of the games and they've been fantastic. Steve Robinson's doing a brilliant job there.
Position, midfield, like yourself?
No, he's a centre half, and he's 6'1" and left footed. So it's a steward's inquiry, Daniel.
Let's go to Sinsel Chris Coles.
Where a wonderful chance for Lincoln has been spurned, or more pertinently, brilliantly saved by Lucas Fabianski. Great ball, Rico Hackett, 6 yards out, a header, he just had to score. Fabianski denied it with a brilliant save. Still Lincoln 0, West Ham 0.
Commentary of that is on Sports Extra. This is an 8 o'clock kickoff. BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Newcastle United 0, Manchester City 0. But Manchester City have had 2 chances, both for Alvarez. The first was saved by the legs of Pope. The second one flashed across the face of goal. But they are the side probing. They are the side looking like they're going to break the deadlock at any time. As Kovacic waits. Ake, midway through the Newcastle half, and Newcastle just trying to contain them. And Steve Cooper was saying that, he described it as the toughest job in world football to face Manchester City, particularly when you go to the Etihad. And the disappointment was that the way that they'd conceded those goals, because he said it's hard enough at the best of times, and we're seeing that tonight. Newcastle can't get a kick.
No, they just can't get near Man City, and this is the danger for me looking at the teams before the start of play. Eddie may have to look at it at half time and bring some reinforcements on, because they're not getting anywhere in the game at all. It's just all one-way traffic at the minute.
10 changes.
They make it look easy, Daniel, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And it's not easy.
Grealish forward on that left-hand side, back towards Kovacic. Kovacic runs forward, looks for a shooting opportunity, doesn't open up, tries to slide it in. That was blocked though by Lewis Miley, the teenager. 10 changes that Eddie Howe made. Bench is not necessarily as strong as Manchester City's bench, but they have Gordon, Almiron, Anderson and Guimaraes as attacking options. Is on the stretch, Dummett heads it away. Kovacic just guides his header towards Grealish. Alvarez inside left channel of the penalty area, surrounded by black and white striped shirts, and Livramento now gets hold of it for Newcastle United and tries to walk it out, gets past Grealish, falls forward and will get a free kick. Half time, Bournemouth stroke. Chris Wise.
0-0, confidence clearly lacking in both. Big chance for Bournemouth in the first half. Dango Ouattara, stunning spin inside the box. His shot palmed away by Jack Bonham. Bournemouth 0, Stoke 0.
14 minutes we've got to go to half time here, and it is still goalless, as Nick Pope, the only player to have been retained from that biggest ever away win in the league for Newcastle United, 8-0 at Bramall Lane at the weekend. Eddie Howe changing his entire outfield. Chelsea against Brighton and Hove Albion. John Southall.
Half-time, Chelsea 0, Brighton 0. Two standout moments, both for Brighton. The first, Robert Sanchez gave the ball away to João Pedro. He clipped it back over Sanchez onto the roof of the net. The second, Caicedo dispossessed by Fati, 3-on-1, went for goal, denied by Sanchez. Then right on half-time, Cole Palmer side-footed wide for Chelsea. Half-time 0-0.
We'll go to Brentford after a corner kick because Lewis Hall has lifted a ball back to Pope, and it was didn't really do his keeper any favours, and it's going to be a corner kick to Manchester City.
That's the last thing you want, isn't it? You just had a little spell of possession and then you give a needless corner away.
So Gomez to take it on this near side, the right. This will be an in-swinger. Alvarez has made a run to the near side of the penalty box as a short option. Phillips, Kovacic and Akanji are inside the D. It goes towards Guardiola, gets his header on it, strikes the back of a Newcastle player and out for another corner on the far side.
Do you know what, Ian, this is another aspect of Guardiola's evolution as a coach. You look at his Barcelona team, it was full of small players, Xavi, Iniesta, David Villa, Messi, Dani Alves, and you look at his team now, Guardiola, Kanji, Haaland, Rodri, big boys who can all play, and now they're a threat at set players, which his team never used to be. He always used to play corners short, and now they're a threat, free kicks and corners.
Well, Grealish to take the corner kick far side the left. It was floated towards Guardiola. It's headed back by Sergio Gomez, and the downward header by Lascelles is picked up by Pope. For a second time tonight, Cardiff City have equalised. Blackburn Rovers 2, Cardiff City 2. Half-time at Brentford, Mark Scott.
Brentford 0, Arsenal 1. Nelson's 8th minute goal, the difference. It came after an awful back pass by Jurgensen straight to Nketiah, who teed up Nelson. Smith Rowe nearly made it 2 after a lovely jinking dribble and was only denied by a good Flecken save with his foot. Brentford 0, Arsenal 1.
Half-time now at Anfield, John Bennett.
Liverpool 0, Leicester 1. A brilliant counter-attack finish by Casey McAteer after just 3 minutes has set up the possible upset, but Liverpool have been inches away from an equaliser. Ben Doak struck the bar. Liverpool 0, Leicester 1.
Joel Linton is forward for Newcastle United, plays the ball back to the blonde-haired Lewis Hall. Now with Dummett as they go further back. We can go to Lincoln City, West Ham. Half-time at Sincil Bank, Chris Coles.
It's 0-0, the least the League One side deserve. They've had a good half, a goal disallowed for a narrow offside and a Rico Hackett header brilliantly saved. West Ham have lacked their usual quality. Danny Ings with their best chance, sliding wide, went through on goal. Lincoln 0, West Ham 0.
Isaac in the centre circle, holds on to the ball, plays it back to Tonali, but because of the sheer number of sky blue shirts, they have to go back. Half-time now at Villa Park, Ellen Ellard.
Aston Villa 0, Everton 1. This will be a frustrating watch for Villa fans. They're inviting all the pressure on themselves. Alston repeatedly choosing to play the ball short under pressure. Villa conceded possession on the edge of the area, and Garner took full advantage of the mistake, finding the back of the net. Half-time, Villa 0, Everton 1.
That's the second time that a rather heavy touch by Murphy has given the ball away over on that far side, as a little bit of litter just starts to flown about on the playing surface in front of the technical areas. Two pieces of paper just catching our attention as Manchester City are back out towards that far side, and it's with Grealish. Kovacic again has gone ahead of him. Now it's with Ake back out to Kovacic. Grealish this time is in the more advanced position down that left side. As now with Calvin Phillips and Newcastle United, with the exception of Isaac, have everybody back behind the ball. Rico Lewis in that inverted role back towards Ake. Manchester City just trying to find a way through. Will nip to Fulham. Half-time, Kelly Summers.
Fulham 1, Norwich 0. The Premier League side have dominated here. Carlos finishes his early goal, one of 9 shots Fulham have had. He converted from Iwobi's header across goal on 12 minutes. 1-0 to Fulham at the break.
I think that rounds up the 7:45 half-times in the League Cup third round. In the Scottish League Cup, the quarter-finals, Hibs, St Mirren, Kenny Crawford.
Half-time score, Hibs 0, St Mirren 1. Scott Tanser, the former Rochdale, Port Vale and St Johnstone fullback, his second goal of the season. A lovely left-foot half volley from the edge of the box. The Buddies trying to make it 11 games unbeaten. They've got 1 foot in the semi-finals. Hibs 0, St Mirren 1.
Now this is a concern. Calvin Phillips has gone to ground. Was there a challenge there from Joel Linton?
I don't know if it was deliberate or accidental, but there's definitely been a collision before the ball came into play. And, Phillips is trying to make a run towards the ball. Oh, I tell you what, he's been caught by Miley, who was tracking Kovacic, and as Phillips stepped back, he ran into Miley and caught him on the back of the calf, back of the ankle. But he seems to be okay now.
Well, it's the last thing that he would want after he's got an opportunity here with with Rodri's 3-match suspension to get a bit of a run on the City side as Oscar Bob hares after Paul Dummett, plays it back. First time clearance was sliced by Pope. Poor clearance by Miley, goes straight to Grealish, tries to get a foot into the challenge to redeem himself. Now it's with Tonali. Tonali fouled by Phillips. Referee wants to play the advantage, but Murphy seemed reluctant to realise that was going on. There was no momentum there. There was no advantage for Newcastle United, given that Murphy was hesitant and he goes out for a throw.
It wasn't a great advantage at all. The ref, honestly, I know what he's trying to do, but he should have just given the free kick. Just to give Newcastle a breather.
Yeah. Here is Kovacic. City are back in possession. We've got 7 minutes to go to half-time. Still 0-0. Let's get an update from Ibrox. Gavin Wallace.
Still Rangers 1, Livingston 0. Ian Stephen Kelly with the first shot on goal for Livingston there. Just 2 seconds before you came to me. It just went over the bar, but Rangers at the moment with 85% of the possession. Rangers 1, Livingston 0.
Aki wins a corner. That was cut out by Lascelles, attacking the Gallagate end. Grealish getting the boos and the cheers as he makes his way over towards that far side. It's another City corner which he's taken quickly. Grealish rolls it towards Alvarez. Back to the England international. Inside, little turn there by Bob. Back then to Grealish. Grealish, no shooting opportunity. Rico Lewis though will get one deflection and loops over the top and out behind for a corner kick.
Yeah, it's a short corner routine. You know what's really interesting, Dano, is when Man City are even attacking the position of the other players. If they were to lose the ball, it always seems to be in the right position to pick up, you know, a deflection off a player or a loose pass. They just sort of suck the life out of you and strangle you and just don't let you out.
Corner kick, right hand side. Gomez hits an in-swinger towards the far post. It was an awkward one and it was dealt with very well by Targett, who's got tangled in the back of that net as a result, but the referee's blown his whistle and it will be a Newcastle United clearance away downfield. 6 minutes to go to half time. How do you beat them? You know, you're watching this now as a coach.
How do you beat them? Don't play them at their own game.
So what do you go
Change,
long? Go long?
Yeah. Listen, they've tried playing through them all half and they can't because they're just too good. So you got to get down the sides of them, test the fullbacks. The City back four, you know, all the fullbacks have done for Man City is attack and play in the opposition half. Get a bit of physicality up there. Get Joe Linton playing on Rico Lewis. And you know, get down the sides and get some crosses in the box, because at the minute it's all one-way traffic, and if City get one in and Eddie doesn't make changes, they'll get another couple.
Well, Manchester City have failed to score just once in 37 games, and in those 37 games it's one defeat in all competitions, and that was Brentford, and that goes back since early February as Lascelles just shrugs off the challenge of Sergio Gomez. Tonali picks it up. Newcastle supporters have had very little to cheer in these opening 40 minutes of this third round of this EFL Cup tie on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. 0-0. And the treble winners in the trophy that got away last year are the ones who have completely dominated. As Ake to Guardiola inside the centre circle. It's the second time that Guardiola has apologised to the fourth official. As Isak to Murphy, releases him. Murphy in the penalty area, saved by Ortega.
Wow, that's gone from nowhere. It's a miscommunication between Guardiola and Phillips. Phillips just a little bit slow on the turn, and then Murphy breaks. And it's a beautiful ball from Isak, and Murphy's in on the right hand side, and Ortega makes a great save. The first opportunity that Newcastle have had, and it's come from a mistake by Man City. And that made it give them something to hang on to, Ian.
Well, certainly, listen what it's done to the Newcastle supporters. First shot on target has come in the 41st minute, and now they've got a corner as their effort. And Ortega, who's been a passenger in these breezy and damp conditions, made the save with his legs in front of the Leesy's end away towards our left-hand side. Still goalless. Corner taken short on the left. Murphy to target. He'll go further square. Tonali, flat ball in, waiting for it at the far post with three of them, and it went over the heads of Lascelles, Joelinton, and then in between Murphy and out for a goal kick.
That's really disappointing from Tonali. He's got time to hit the diagonal back across to Joelinton. That's one of Eddie Howe's old set plays. He used to do that one at Bournemouth, where they go from one side of the pitch to the other and play a diagonal back to where the ball started. And Tonali's not executed the pass. He actually has been off the game tonight for me, and he's been poor in possession.
3 minutes to go to the break. Neil Lennon, who began his career actually at Manchester City.
Long time ago, Deno.
1988.
Correct.
3-0 defeat at Birmingham City.
3-0 win.
3-0 win, was it?
Yeah, I was there. Trust me.
We'll be checking that at half-time. You wore the number 2 shirt.
I was 16. I played right back. Oh, brilliant.
Here is Oscar Bob.
He's done it again.
Cross. And again, rather than going for goal, unselfish. And that's the second time that Guardiola is banging his hands against his head, thinking, this is it, this is an opportunity. Very unselfish.
Again, they've won the ball in Newcastle's defensive third. Lovely touch from Alvarez to Bob. Yeah, maybe the angle's a bit tight for him to shoot, but even then the cross is poor from him.
Gomez waits to take the corner kick. Short option available, not required. Left-footed, very, very deep. Gvardiol gets his head on it, then brings it down. Manages to keep the ball in play and get a corner. Well, against all the odds, Gvardiol there, because he really was having to run back and stretch for it, wins a corner off Joelinton.
What about his control with the head and then to bring it down? That's from your left side of centre half.
That's what you were like as a 16-year-old at St Andrews. 2 minutes to go to half-time, still 0-0. 5 live. Grealish waits far side the left. It's going to be an in-swinger. In it comes now. They're waiting for it. Pope gets a fist on that to punch it away. Gomez is in a foot chase with Miley. Gomez keeps the ball in play under pressure from Lewis Miley. Goes all the way back to Ortega, who then plays it out towards Sergio Gomez. And then Gomez will go back to Ortega, still outside of his penalty area, all in green, away towards our left-hand side. Kovacic running away from Murphy. No challenge. Then he runs into trouble. They lose the ball. Newcastle get it back. But Phillips then wins it back with a 50-50. Tonali tries to get there. The crowd respond. Livramento comes forward. Urged on by the St James's Park crowd. Livramento runs forward, delivers a cross-come shot that flashes over everybody's head and out of play for a throw. Doesn't take much to excite this crowd.
That was fantastic, wasn't it? And just the decibel raise, gradually as you could see that sort of passage of play build, and the fight that Newcastle showed there, fantastic.
Here is Dummett. The clearance from Manchester City was held up a little bit in the wind. Tonali gives it away. Little back heel by Alvarez to Kovacic. Gomez is running through the middle, but it runs off his legs and through towards Pope. And we'll find out how much added on time there will be as Pope throws it out towards Lewis Hall, who runs forward for Newcastle. Target's ahead of him. Hall has gone further clear on this left-hand side, and now he is being barged over by Akanji, and the referee says no foul, but Akanji actually stops because there's no one ahead of him. It's like a rabbit in the headlights there was Akanji. There's Oscar Bob, good footwork. He really has caught the eye, hasn't he? And there's going to be 1 minute of additional time here at St James's Park, and it is still 0-0. Here is Phillips on the halfway line inside the centre circle. Kovacic almost waits for the challenge to come from Miley, and now to Gvardiol. It's a night where the youngsters have really caught the eye and impressed for Manchester City, but it remains 0-0. The 7:45 games will be getting underway very, very soon, so stay with us. It'll be a busy half-time period as we zip here, there and everywhere, and Rico Lewis making the run forward. The little chip from Sergio Gomez away from him. Again, there's an appreciation of the football that they're playing.
Marvellous, a little bit ambitious with the reverse ball at the end, but who do you think, Deno, is going to be the happier manager at the minute?
I would think Eddie Howe.
I would as well. I think there'd be a air of frustration from Guardiola, the fact that they've dominated the game and not been in front. Well, I would imagine Eddie will have to think about some changes, because the longer this goes on, you'd imagine Newcastle will tire, because they've done a lot of chasing so far, unless they can get something to hold on to.
Well, there's the half-time whistle, and it's 0-0, but Alvarez has had 2 chances, one saved by the feet of Pope. Oscar Bob has had 2 chances where you think go for goal, and he didn't. And then for Newcastle at the other end, Murphy saving Ortega. So what are your thoughts on that first half, Neil?
Oh, it was a great game to watch, but all the talk has been about the play of Man City, their passing, their movement, Newcastle hanging in there in terms of possession, and then out of nowhere they get a break because of the complacency from Man City, because they've been so much in control and could have been a goal up. But Eddie won't be happy with the lack of possession, the lack of bravery on the ball. They've given the ball away a lot, and when you do that against the Man City side coached by Guardiola, it's a long time for the ball to come back, and when you do get it there in the end, you're fatigued.
Well, don't worry, there hasn't been a goalless draw since 1995 here at St James's Park.
Oh no.
And it's half-time here.
Now you've gone and done it. How long, Neil, do you think until we see Doku, Haaland, Foden, Nunez? Take your pick.
I'd definitely give it another 15-20 minutes, Steve. I think, whilst he'll be frustrated, Guardiola's team have played brilliantly and so fluently, and they have cut Newcastle open on a couple of occasions and been in the majority of control of the game. So yeah, I wouldn't be too much in a hurry just yet. I think all the questions are for Eddie. What does he do? Because if it keeps going on like this and City do score, that's a long way back for them.
And reminder, straight to penalties if we're level at the end of 90 minutes. Ian, Neil, thank you very much indeed. Second half commentary, of course, on the way from St James's Park. But as that game reaches half-time, all the other games tonight in the League Cup third round are getting underway in the second half. Let's start with League One Lincoln City, who are at home to West Ham. Chris Coles.
0-0, second half probably 3 or 4 minutes away here. We were quite late getting underway. It's been a good game this. Lincoln should be in front, squandering the game's best opportunity. Rico Hackett, 6 yards out, free header. He was wonderfully found. He could have put it anywhere in the net. Instead, he put it straight down the throat of Lucas Fabianski. Still needed saving, and it was a good save. West Ham's biggest threat, Danny Ings, clean through just after that chance actually for Lincoln, but he slid just wide. West Ham have lacked quality in the final third in particular, and Lincoln will fancy their chances in the second half. Players just out now. It's 0-0.
Stephen Kelly is one half of your commentary team for this match on 5 Sports Extra. Impressed with Lincoln, Stephen?
Very impressed. They've had to bide their time. At moments they've had to get back into a back five and defend deep and numbers behind the ball, but for the most part they've caused a real threat, and when they go in the forward areas, their quality in the final third, their crossing, their last ball has been better than West Ham's, and they've had the best chance of the game. Honestly, Steve, if he hits this, if he actually connects with it a little bit less than what he does, it goes to the back of the net. It's one of those powerful headers. He gets up, but it's straight down the throat of the goalkeeper, pulls off a fine save by either side of him, it's back of the net, and they've had a goal disallowed as well, so they're unlucky not to be in front.
Just in case anyone's forgotten as well, Stephen, you were on with us after round 2, and you got us a live interview with the AFC Wimbledon manager Johnny Jackson. So will you be getting Mark Kennedy for us later?
I'll try my Irish charmer. Maybe that might work. I've never actually played with Mark Kennedy, but I know him, so yeah, I'll try and get him up here as well.
You know him? Oh, brilliant! Right, let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. Nice one, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed. 5 Sports Extra for the commentary. Second half about to get underway. Let's go back to Anfield. This could be the story of the night. Liverpool-Leicester. John Bennett.
Yeah, we are underway in the second half. Liverpool 0, Leicester City 1. Casey McAteer with the only goal, stunning Anfield after just 3 minutes. Lovely counter-attack move, summing up how well Leicester City have played this season. Since then, it's been all Liverpool. Ben Doak, the 17-year-old's been really impressive. Should have scored, though, from just a few yards out. He hit the bar. Then a brilliant goal line clearance from Conor Coady on his Leicester City debut, denying Cody Gakpo. Leicester City taking risks at the back, playing out from the back. They're going to keep doing that. It's going to be an entertaining second half. Liverpool 0, Leicester City 1.
In the Scottish League Cup quarter-final ties tonight, Hibs 0, St Mirren 1, and Ross County 0, Aberdeen 1. Both games just getting underway in the second half. Ross County have had Jack Baldwin sent off in that one. The third tie of the night is at Ibrox. This was the 8 o'clock kickoff. Rangers Livingston. Gavin Wallace.
Yeah, Stephen, Rangers 1, Livingston 0. The hosts with over 80% of the first half possession, and to be honest, it could easily have been 3 or 4 at half time. The deadlock broken on 10. Abdullah Stima stole the ball from Jamie Brandon on the left. Livingston all but stopped, which meant the Senegalese forward had a free route to goal, and he opened up his body really nicely and curled it well beyond Shamal George into the far corner. Livy's only chance was on 36. Stephen Kelly blasted his shot high and wide. Rangers with 1 foot in the semis, Stephen. It's Rangers 1, Livingston 0.
So here are the scores for you in the League Cup tonight. Aston Villa 0, Everton 1, Blackburn 2, Cardiff 2, Bournemouth 0, Stoke 0, Brentford 0, Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0, Brighton 0, Fulham 1, Norwich 0, Lincoln 0, West Ham 0, and Newcastle 0, Manchester City 0. There's been a goal at Anfield. John Bennett.
An equaliser for Liverpool. Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1. It's Cody Gakpo, picks it up just next to the penalty spot. Lovely turn and shot, low shot past the goalkeeper. Liverpool equalise. Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1.
We'll be round all of the other grounds and then back to St James's for second half commentary of Newcastle versus Manchester City after the news on 5 Live with Tim Daly.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Good evening. Flowers and cards have been left at a roadside in South London where a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death on her way to school this morning. A 17-year-old boy who knew her has been arrested. A stocktake of Britain's plants and animals is showing wildlife is continuing to decline, with almost 1 in 6 species at risk of extinction. Almost half of bird species are being threatened. The State of Nature report, led by the RSPB, blames factory farming, overfishing and climate change. Irish police say they've made the country's biggest ever drug seizure. Officials recovered more than 2 tonnes of cocaine, thought to have a street value of around £140 million off the south coast. And the TV channel GB News has suspended 2 presenters and apologised over remarks one of them made about a female journalist. Lawrence Fox was speaking on Dan Wootton's show when he made the comments about Ava Evans. And that's the news on 5 Live.
The best live sport.
The Ryder Cup is back.
So the hat comes off, the match is won.
Team Europe is over the ball in its European blue and rolling it on versus Team USA.
And he clenches his fist as the ball disappears into the hole. That is the magic number.
There's nothing quite like it.
The Ryder Cup 2023, live from Rome.
Starts Friday morning on 5 Live and BBC Sound.
This is 5 Live Sport with Steve Crossman.
On 5 Live. Listen on BBC Sounds.
3 goals have gone in during the news. For the 3rd time tonight, Blackburn lead against Cardiff. It's Blackburn 3, Cardiff 2. This is not a drill. Chelsea have scored. John Southall.
Chelsea have a goal. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0. Cole Palmer played it into Nicholas Jackson, 14 yards out, and he swept it into the bottom left-hand corner, his second for the club, and Chelsea's first goal this month, their first goal since the 30th of August, and they lead Brighton by 1-0.
And a goal at Bournemouth. Chris Wise.
6 minutes into the second half for Premier League Bournemouth. They lead Stoke 1-0. Dominic Solanke on as a half-time substitute. Low ball from the right, super sharp touch, spin and finish to the keeper's left. The game badly needed that. Bournemouth 1, Stoke 0.
And in the Scottish League Cup quarter-finals, a goal at Easter Road. Kenny Crawford.
And it's an equaliser for Hibernian. It looks like it's an own goal in his well-fished header from a corner, and it's going in off one of the St Mirren defenders, so the hosts are back in the game. Hibernian 1, St Mirren 1.
Back into the League Cup, let's check in at Brentford against Arsenal. Mark Scott.
Still 1-0 to Brentford. Eddie Nketiah has just bent one over the bar from the edge of the area. Brentford thought that they might have been in. Ramsdale came out to make a save, but the flag was raised anyway against Brian Mbeumo. Still 1-0 to Mikel Arteta's men.
Goals are absolutely flying in now to Villa Park. Ellen Ellard.
Aston Villa 0, Everton 2. Dominic Calvert-Lewin with the goal. He snuck his way past Konsa, one-on-one with Robin Olsen, and just tapped it past him. Aston Villa 0, Everton 2.
Let's go back to Craven Cottage. Fulham Norwich. Kelly Summers.
Fulham 1, Norwich 0. The Premier League side still lead thanks to Vinicius' early goal, but Norwich have come out for the second half the better side. 2 good chances. McCallum with a lovely run before he fired wide, whilst Fisher also fired a first-time volley wide. Fulham 1, Norwich 0.
Another goal at Bournemouth. Chris Wise.
Might have taken the game away from Stoke now. They're 2-0 up. Bournemouth. Joe Rothwell. He scored his first ever Cherries goal. Free kick from the left side of the penalty area. He intended it as a cross. It's a classic one that goes all the way in. Bournemouth 2, Stoke 0.
It's like Chelsea scored a goal and then everyone else was just like, well, if they've scored, we might as well. How was it greeted, John Southall?
With relief, I think, more than anything else around the stadium. I mean, as we spoke before the game, they've been in games all season. Actually, they've had 67% possession in the Premier League this season. That is the average, and that's higher than anybody else in the league. But they've been frustrated in front of goal, and no more so than Nicholas Jackson. So I think that goal will do him the world of good. Cole Palmer did really well to play it into his path, and he just rolled it into the bottom left-hand corner. So let's see what they can do from here. Let's see if they can build on the goal, or because Brighton actually came out really strongly in the second half. Roberto De Zerbi was so agitated in the first 45 minutes, and I suspect he had a few words at half-time, so I don't think this is over yet.
It would be no surprise, John, to see Nicholas Jackson all of a sudden look like a different footballer and a man without the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's certainly what the Chelsea fans will be hoping, because apart from the finishing, which I know is massively important for a centre forward, he's looked pretty decent in the Chelsea games that I've seen. He's got pace, he can get in behind, but he hasn't been able to finish. So you're right, it could be a turning point.
And there's been another goal, so let's go back to the Scottish League Cup. We're going back to Easter Road. Kenny.
What a turnaround in this game, Steve. There was doubt about who scored Hibs first, but no doubt about who scored the second. Dutchman Dylan Venta, brilliant low finish into the bottom left-hand corner. Hibernian 2, St Mirren 1.
Let's go back to Sincilbank, League One Lincoln against West Ham. Chris Coles.
7 minutes into the second half, Lincoln 0, West Ham 0, but the League One side picking up where they left off in the first half on the front foot. Lasse Sorensen firing just over from the edge of the penalty area. Storm Agnes has reached Lincoln. The rain now sweeping across Sincilbank as another cross flashes across the West Ham box. Lincoln on top, still 0-0 with West Ham.
And there's been yet another goal at Ewood Park. It's now Blackburn 4, Cardiff City 2. So 6 goals in that game and only 55 minutes gone. That game between Lincoln and West Ham, by the way, is live right now on 5 Sports Extra. Let's find out how Liverpool have reacted to getting that equaliser at Anfield. John Bennett.
Yeah, it's all Liverpool at the moment. Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1. Cody Gakpo scoring 3 minutes into the second half after Leicester had scored 3 minutes into the game through Casey McAteer. Wilfred Ndidi is about to come on for Leicester City to add a bit of defensive solidity, I think, to the midfield. But as I was saying, Steve, they are intent on playing out from the back and taking risks at the back. So Liverpool just keep creating chances. It's Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1.
Any sign of a Brentford fight back against Arsenal, Mark Scott?
Not at the moment, Steve, but Thomas Frank is readying Matthias Jensen to come on. He's got that board out with the counters on it as well, going through his tactical plans for the midfielder. They've lacked some bite in the middle of the park. Maybe he can provide it. So far, Aaron Ramsdale in the Arsenal goal is yet to make a save. Brentford 0, Arsenal 1.
Let's go back to Craven Cottage. Kelly Summers.
Well, after I was telling you, Steve, that Norwich have come out the better side, it sparked Fulham back into life. They lead by a goal to 0, but Harry Wilson on the right-hand side just broke free, played in Vinicius. The goalkeeper, the Norwich goalkeeper, came out well, then rebounded, and Iwobi just couldn't convert behind. The Craven Cottage crowd have woken up for the second half now. Their side need them, but they do still lead by a goal to 0.
I mean, it sounds like Villa could do with waking up. Helen Ellard.
Yeah, absolutely. Unai Emery stressed the importance of this competition to his team. He's made a number of changes at the start of the second half. 3 changes for Villa, Kamara, Dean and Watkins on. 1 change for Everton, Ashley Young has come on against his former club. But they're just inviting pressure on themselves, Villa. Robin Olsen in the goal, you can tell they're lacking the presence of Martinez. He's just refusing to send it out long, regularly playing out from the back. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Danjuma, they're all ready to pounce at any opportunity, and Villa could really do with something now.
Let's see if that goal has changed Chelsea at all. John Southall.
Well, they've just had a free kick over on the left-hand side. They lead Brighton by a goal to 0. Mudryk with it, Mykhailo Mudryk, who, you know, is still struggling to find the form that we thought he had when he came to the club. Free kick awful, straight over the crossbar as Brighton just try and play it out from the back here, and they could get themselves in trouble if that's cleared away. What I didn't tell you, Steve, before the goal, Mahmoud Dahoud had an unbelievably good chance, 12 yards out, unmarked, totally mishit it, and that was a 0-0. Always just getting a bit spicy over on the far side there. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0.
Let's find out if Liverpool are starting to take control now at Anfield. John.
Yeah, they are. Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1. Cody Gakpo, though, having an effort saved off the line, set up by Ben Doak. What a talent he is, 17 years old. He has been so unlucky not to score so far tonight. Such a dangerous player on the right-hand side. It's Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1.
John, thank you very much indeed. So we've had goals going in all over the place in England and Scotland. Quick reminder, in those Scottish League Cup quarter-final ties, there will be extra time if any of them level at the end of 90 minutes, although at the minute none of them are. Hibs 2, St Mirren 1, Ross County down to 10 men and trailing Aberdeen by a goal to 0. Those matches in the second half. Rangers 1, Livingston 0 at the break. But the games in the League Cup tonight, they will all go to penalties if they're level at the end of 90 minutes, which we are at St James's Park. Second half commentary of Newcastle and Manchester City with Neil Lennon and Ian Dennis.
And just looking at it, I mean, the teams aren't even out yet, but the 2 commentary games, if you like, the Lincoln one, West Ham, that's on Sports Extra, and this one here, are the only ones that are goalless.
And you would expect goals in both those games, really, when you think of the opposition. That certainly West Ham, I'd have fancied them tonight to win that one, you know, quite clearly. With but Moisey, I think, would want to get another cup run in one of the competitions. Yeah. It's just interesting to see. Like, we were watching the subs, and Gomares and Gordon weren't out warming up, so it looks like they're going to come on. In fact, is that 3 changes?
No, just the 2. But we were just waiting, Steve, and Neil was just saying, he said, look, who are the subs that are warming up? And he said, who are the 2 are missing? and it was Gordon and Guimaraes. He said, well, they'll be coming on, and then true enough, Anthony Gordon and Bruno Guimaraes are going to be coming on here at the start of the second half for Newcastle United. 0-0 against Manchester City, who are yet to appear. So Eddie Howe making a couple of changes. The board is yet to go up because even the officials haven't been sent out yet, but the wind, I think, looking at the way that those black and white striped shirts are rippling in the breeze, that wind has really picked up now at the start of the second half.
Well, I thought in the first half the wind was against City and for Newcastle. I don't know if it's sort of changed as the half has worn on. I don't know, it's hard to feel in this sort of seat which way the wind is blowing. Here comes City now, and Eddie's making these two changes. I think it was needed then.
Well, Lewis Miley is one of them, and then I'm thinking he must have taken off one of the defenders, so Lewis Hall is the other, just by the powers of deduction. So Newcastle United with Nick Pope in goal, Livramento, Lascelles, Dummett and Targett will now be the back four, as it'll be Tonali, Joelinton, Murphy, Bruno Guimaraes, with Gordon and Isak. Are the changes being made. So Lewis Hall and Lewis Miley. The two Lewises have been taken off. Manchester City haven't made any changes. So Ortega in goal. Back three of Akanji, Gvardiol and Ake. You've got Lewis and Gomez. No, in fact, no, it wasn't that, was it? It was Ortega, Rico Lewis, Akanji, Gvardiol and Ake. Sergio Gomez playing on the right of the front three because Kovacic, Phillips and Oscar Bob with Alvarez, Grealish and Gomez as the referees. Chris Kavanagh blows his whistle and we're back underway for the second half. 0-0. Total domination from Manchester City, wasn't it, that first half?
Yeah, and I think that's why you don't see a change from Man City at the minute, because I think Guardiola would have been pretty pleased with the performance, but not the fact that they're leading the game, because their player has deserved the goal.
We'll keep you in touch as we did in the first half with the goals elsewhere around the country. In the other ties, the draw to be made after this game, that if it remains 0-0 after 90 minutes, it will go straight to a penalty shootout. So Newcastle United in this second half in their black and white striped shirts and black shorts are playing from left to right as we look attacking the Gallagate end. Manchester City therefore in their sky blue shirts and white shorts are attacking the Leazes end, where their healthy support that stretches all the way around the corner, high up in the gods away towards our left, have travelled over the M62 and then up the A1 to get here to St James's Park. Ball forward, Isak loses out in the challenge to Phillips, but he wins it back as Isak, showed his strength well, tried to squeeze it forward towards Tonali, who straight away is in a more advanced position now with Bruno Guimaraes behind him, but here is Kovacic to run forward and away from Dummett. Up against the dark-haired figure of Livramento now is Jack Grealish, teasing Livramento on the inside, waits, left corner of the box, Phillips joins the attack, Phillips with a curling effort, right-footed, well over the crossbar and out for a goal kick. 0-0, Neil Lennon.
Yeah, I just thought he made the wrong choice to pass there. Isaac Murphy was in a wide position on the edge of the box. That seemed to be the ball, but he tried to go central and City picked it up and were able to break. Pure choice of decision there from Calvin Phillips, pure execution. So again, decent start from Newcastle. Maybe the two subs has given them a bit of a lift.
Let's get an update from Stamford Bridge. John Southall.
Chelsea 1, Brighton 0. Could have been 2 though. Nicholas Jackson played in by Mudryk, through on goal, saved by Verbruggen with his outstretched left foot. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0.
I think the one element that will please Eddie Howe at the moment is the fact that they are defensively tight. I mean, after 3 straight defeats, unbeaten in 3, but 3 successive clean sheets against Brentford, at Milan, and then at Sheffield United, and they're running forward now with Murphy, right side of the penalty area. The cutback looking towards Tonali. It was Livramento who joined the attack on this right-hand side. It stays in play actually. Murphy's kept the ball in play level with the penalty area in the right 2.5 minutes. Looks to go on the outside of Grealish, who's back goal side. Murphy now to Guimaraes. Lascelles. Jamal Lascelles goes square. Dummett out towards that far side for Targett, forward towards Gordon. Little touch from Joelinton. Newcastle already keeping the ball for longer periods than they did for most of the first half. A little drag back there by Murphy, plays it forward towards Isak. Akanji is the one who's forced to turn, tries to shield the ball away from Isak, but Isak again has got there first. Isak right side of the penalty area, much better from the home side. Just sold Livramento short and allowed Akanji to nip in. rolls it towards Alvarez. Pressure is better from Newcastle. There's a greater intensity from the home team. Guimaraes sweeps over the cross, just over the head of Joel Linton. Much better.
Well, Ian, we're 3.5 minutes into the second half. Newcastle have done more in the 3.5 minutes, you know, in terms of possession, intensity, than they did in the whole 45. And obviously the Guimaraes and Gordon coming on has given the team a bit more stability, balance and confidence. So it's game on there.
It certainly is. Newcastle United 0, Manchester City 0. Goalless in our commentary game on Sports Extra between Lincoln and West Ham United. Tomorrow night we'll be live in Rome. Mark Chapman with a Ryder Cup preview from 7, and the Ryder Cup coverage live on Friday morning, all day, throughout the day, on BBC Radio 5 Live from 9 a.m. through till 6. Cannot wait for the coverage from Ian Carter, Mark Chapman and the team. Alvarez, 4 minutes into the second half. Oscar Bob with a back heel. Tonali breaks it up. Now it's with Joel Linton. Forward ball, under pressure, released it towards Guimaraes. Gordon makes the run, just couldn't take it in his stride. Akanji will try and drag the ball away from Gordon, who hares after him. And then Gordon slides in through Kovacic. Good challenge by Gordon. And again, the crowd really do respond.
And sort of Guardiola sarcastically clapping. He wasn't happy with the tackle. It was a bit heavy-handed and out of context with the game. But it's lifted the crowd, but Guardiola not happy at all with that challenge.
Any sign of a breakthrough at Sincil Bank? Chris Coles.
It feels like it's coming, Ian. West Ham have been much better in this second half. Still 0-0 at League One Lincoln City, but West Ham beginning to flex their Premier League muscles. Thomas Souček's gone into the book for a late challenge. Still pretty even this, with 64 minutes played. Lincoln 0, West Ham 0.
Commentary on Sports Extra. City go long, one bounce and it's through to Pope. Newcastle now seem to be after City more. Livramento just left one on Gomez a little earlier.
Yeah, maybe Eddie's had a word at half time, just to, you know, up the aggression and you know, don't sort of stand off them. Which again, I'm not saying they did in the first half. It's just City were so good, but certainly the addition of Gordon and Guimaraes has definitely given them a better balance and certainly more quality in the side as well.
Here is Phillips in the centre circle. Joel Linton gets a foot into the challenge. Isak now has it. Gordon and Murphy running either side. Murphy actually makes a run infield. The ball was looked towards Livramento, and Ake will use that to marshal it out safely for a goal kick. But it's been a positive start for the second half for Newcastle United, although it remains 0-0. Are Arsenal still in front of Brentford? Mark Scott.
They are, Ian, but it's a similar situation here with Brentford looking a lot more revved up in the second half, and they were inches away from levelling. Johan Wissa with the strike. Ramsdale got a hand to it, onto the post and away to safety. Much better from Brentford, but they still trail 1-0.
So Arsenal are ahead. Bournemouth are leading at home to Stoke City 2-0. Blackburn are 4-2 up at home to Cardiff. Everton are 2-0 up at Villa Park against Aston Villa. Fulham are ahead at home to Norwich. Chelsea lead Brighton by a goal to 0. Goalless at Sincil Bank. And what's the latest at Anfield? John Bennett.
It's Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1. A couple of the big guns are on for Liverpool. Szoboszlai and Nunez are on as Liverpool try to find a goal to win this game. Liverpool 1, Leicester City 1.
This is the first of 4 away matches for Manchester City. Wolves away at the weekend. Leipzig away in the Champions League next week. That was a nice take into feet by Murphy. Infield to Joel Linton. Joel Linton running forward. Joel Linton still going in the penalty area with the cutback. Far post! Isak with the goal! Newcastle United, 7 minutes into the second half, and he couldn't miss. Great work by Joel Linton. And Isak controlled it, and with that goal gaping, found the back of the net to the delight of St James's Park. And somewhat against the run of play in the overall context of the game, Newcastle strike first.
It's a great ball here, Ian, from Lascelles into Jacob Murphy, and it's a great turn away from Kovacic, and that opens the whole City defence. But Joe Linton still has a lot to do. He kept his balance well. Ake can't stop the pullback, goes to the far post, and the simplest of finishes for Isak. And you have to say Newcastle started much better on the front foot in the second half. The changes that Eddie needed to make have worked. They brought on the quality. Now, here's the interesting one. What's Pep going to do now? Is he going to get a couple of the big guns on to turn this around, or is he going to leave the players on at the minute? It was a great goal from a Newcastle perspective, good for the game as well. And you did say there'd be goals in it, Daniel.
I did. And that stat that we said, I think, in the 7th minute of the game still stands. 1995, the last goalless draw between these two here at St James's Park. There's no VAR, so play will automatically restart. Newcastle are ahead, but Newcastle's positive approach since the restart has been rewarded.
Absolutely, yeah. They look a different team, and the changes were necessary and the work.
Clearance by Ortega. Newcastle United, they played against Premier League opposition at every step of the way as they reached the final last year and lost, of course, to Manchester United at Wembley. They would love a repeat journey. Nobody wanted Manchester City, regardless what team Pep Guardiola puts out. They've dominated this competition in recent seasons. But Newcastle, who were under the cosh in the first half, are leading by a goal to nil. And now they've got something to protect. Blackburn 5, Cardiff 2 is the latest score elsewhere. And when Neil Lennon says it'll be interesting to see how Pep responds, bearing in mind he's got a cast list of Walker, Diaz, Haaland, Doku, Nunes, Foden, and then a young teenager in the name of Michael Hamilton who's on the bench. So they're not sure, as there's been another goal at Anfield. John Bennett.
What a goal by Dominic Szoboszlai. It's Liverpool 2, Leicester City 1. A rocket of a shot just outside the box. It flew into the net. Liverpool 2, Leicester City 1.
Newcastle United supporters now are up for it as well. They didn't have a great deal to cheer in the first half, but they're cheering every kick, they're cheering every challenge at the moment.
They're certainly up for it, but they just got to be careful they don't get too emotional. Isaac, even cheering, blocking a pass. So they're really up for it at the minute, but you know what Man City are like. I've seen this all before. I just want to know how long Pep gives it before he does change, because to be fair, the second half they've not really got out of any sort of gear at all.
Here is Isak. Isak once again couldn't get the shooting opportunity. In fact, it's deflected behind for a corner. Almost like the roles have been reversed. It's Newcastle United now who are carrying the greater threat.
They're really aggressive, good press, good speed of passing, and obviously they've got the crowd behind them now as well. It's absolutely brilliant from Newcastle.
So Newcastle United, far side the left, have a corner. Manchester City have got everybody back. It's the home side though who are ahead, leading by a goal to nil. Don't you know it, judging by the atmosphere. In it comes, headed out by Alvarez for Manchester City. Picked up now by Murphy. City had everybody back there. Ball played out towards Tonali, brings it down off his thigh, look toward Gordon, goes over his head, cleared away by Rico Lewis, who hoisted away towards safety, but Livramento, unchallenged, will bring that ball under control. Goal at Chelsea, John Southall.
Chelsea 2, Brighton nil. It's like London buses. Nicholas Jackson with his second, swept it into the bottom left-hand corner from 8 yards out. Jackson second, Chelsea 2, Brighton nil.
11 minutes into the second half. The goals will keep you up to date elsewhere. Headed back by Alvarez. Now it's with Gordon. Tell you what, as you'd said, what a finish we've got now for 34 minutes of this cup tie. Because
the speed of the game's amazing as well. Just the fact that the crowd are up for it as well, it just adds to the speed of the game and the physicality. Newcastle have really upped their physical output at the minute.
Now here is Isak, the goal scorer, plays it out towards Murphy. Real purpose about Newcastle's play at the moment. Tonali, little touch, Livramento getting forward. Murphy makes the run towards the byline inside right channel of the area, attacking the Gallagate end towards Livramento. Guimaraes, the double substitution has worked wonders for Newcastle. The reverse pass from Guimaraes was delightful. The cross from Murphy, deep over the head of Joel Linton. And it will not be kept in play over on that far side, but much better for Newcastle United. Goal at Lincoln now, Chris Colt.
The Premier League side in front, Lincoln 0, West Ham 1, fairly simple, corner to the front post. There was Thomas Souček to tap in. Lincoln 0, West Ham 1.
So West Ham are ahead, commentary of Sports Extra. That goal incidentally at Stamford Bridge was ruled out, so it's Chelsea 1, Brighton 0, but there's been another goal elsewhere in West London. Kelly Summers.
Fulham 2, Norwich 0. Alex Iwobi has a goal on his first Fulham start. Lovely finish from the edge of the area, just rolling the ball beyond Long in the Norwich goal. Fulham surely with 1 foot in the next round. Fulham 2, Norwich 0.
We're approaching the hour mark. We're on until 10:30. Then Colin Murray will be live on BBC Radio 5 Live with a Ryder Cup to come over 3 successive days, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Intermixed with the football, of course, on Saturday afternoon. Manchester United Crystal Palace at 3, followed by Tottenham against Liverpool at 5:30. If you haven't downloaded the BBC Sounds app ahead of the Ryder Cup coverage, then do so. You can take 5 Live with us wherever you go to listen to the comprehensive coverage, the wall-to-wall golf coverage that'll be coming direct from Rome. But here we are tonight, told it's very warm in Rome. Not so here at the moment in the northeast today. It's been a bit wet and wild.
It's hot on the pitch though at the minute. It's frenetic out there, and Newcastle got their tails up at the minute. But you just don't rate Man City off, and I wouldn't want Newcastle to get too overconfident because there's still 30-35 minutes to go this game.
Well, Manchester City haven't conceded more than 1 goal in their last 40 games in all competitions, a run that stretches back to January in a 4-2 victory against Tottenham. So you know all about what Manchester City's defence and how very little it's breached on more than the one occasion during that period. But Newcastle United do have the advantage, and certainly those missed opportunities for Manchester City is one that Pep Guardiola may still rue. Kovacic, but still no sign of the big guns being called for, but Haaland and Foden are warming up. Here is Grealish. Grealish at the moment, 25 yards out from goal. Now towards Calvin Phillips. Central position, mistake and a little bit of a wobble by Kovacic, and presents the ball to Newcastle United midway through their own half. Another goal at Fulham. Kelly Summers.
Fulham 2, Norwich 1. Could we be set for an interesting finish? Sainz on his debut off the bench has one back for the visitors. Fulham 2, Norwich 1.
Just looking down the crib sheet of mine, I don't think there's one tie tonight, either in England or in Scotland, that is currently level. But we'll of course let you know if that changes. And there's indeed been a goal at Easter Road. Kenny Crawford.
It's swung again, Ian. It's now Hibernian 2, St Mirren 2. The Buddies have equalised, and what a nice strike by Keanu Bacchus, the Australian international. Picked up the ball 20 yards out, drove towards the box and let fly with his right foot into the bottom left-hand corner. Hibs 2, St Mirren 2.
An hour played here. Newcastle lead Manchester City by 1-0. Guimaraes is the player who's gone down. The substitute. This would be a natural concern.
Looks like they're calling for the sub already. He's holding he was pressed in the back of his calf, and Isaac's down as well now. He's sitting down as well, so there's definitely going to be a change here. Then Almiron's going into the dugout to get stripped.
Yeah, but like you say, Isak has also sat down. Guimaraes is now on his feet.
He doesn't look great though, does he?
Doesn't for either of them. They're not going to take any chances with Guimaraes. Almiron will come on for him, and Isak at the moment, the referee's actually telling Isak he's going to have to come off the side of the pitch. So there's a stoppage in play. Gives us a chance to nip to Stamford Bridge. John Southall.
Well, Chelsea lead Brighton by 1-0. As we heard, Nicholas Jackson thought he'd got the second of the game, but amidst all the excitement, ruled for offside that one. So Brighton's still very much in this. They've made their 5 changes. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0.
Let's go to Sincil Bank. Chris Coles.
Lincoln 0, West Ham 1, but the Premier League side dominating now. Ben Johnson, the left back, has just hit the post from range, came onto it beautifully, hit it crisply, but hit the outside of the post. Lincoln looking tired now. They trail 1-0 with 15 minutes to play.
In fact, Almiron is not coming on for Guimaraes. Guimaraes came to the side of the pitch, but Guimaraes is okay to continue, but Isak isn't. So the substitution was Almiron for Alexander Isak, the goal scorer. We'll go to Rangers. Gavin Wallace.
Rangers 1, Livingston 0. And just before you came to me, Ian, Louis de Lucas was up above everyone at a corner, and his header just inches by the post, but it does stay. Rangers 1, Livingston 0.
BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. A night of cup action here, based at St James's Park in the northeast of England. Tyneside, Newcastle lead by 1-0. Sergio Gomez away far side the right. Clearance though by Lascelles. Clattered the ball out of play for a throw on the far side. Guimaraes, he's got to wait for at least 30 seconds.
Oh really?
Before he can come onto the field of play. And Chris Kavanagh now tells him to come back on.
It's crazy rule, that. Crazy rule. I'm just watching what Newcastle are going to do now that Isaac's gone off. It looks like Gordon's going centre forward, Murphy on the left, Almiron on the right.
That's the voice of Neil Lennon with us here at St James's Park, where the still breezy, but it's dry for the time being. Ball inside was from Oscar Bob. He was checked and the Norwegian under-21 international. Now Pep Guardiola's just having a little word with Eddie Howe, but the two of them are having a little hug and a little embrace as they share their opinions or two.
Now Guardiola's not happy because I have to say Newcastle have come out, they've been really physical, and they've left a bit on a couple of Man City players. That's about the third or fourth in a row now, and Guardiola's just over there Eddie going, any chance of your boys calming down a little bit?
Jason Tindall is also there.
He's always there.
Free kick to Manchester City. You've been on good form tonight. Miss working with you. 1-0 to Newcastle. Free kick to Manchester City, then just in from the right touchline. 30 yards out from goal. Newcastle have the advantage. They've got everybody in and around their own penalty area. City attack the Leesy's end. Alvarez to take it. It's an outswinger. Akanji was there. Couldn't direct his header goalwards. Doesn't go out. Yes, it goes out of play for a corner kick to Manchester City.
I thought he should have done better there. I thought it was a great ball in. I thought Akanji should have got more on the header.
Corner's taken quickly and taken short on that right-hand side. Here is Rico Lewis. The cross was charged down. Gordon now break up towards Almiron. First touch was a very heavy one. It went a good 2 or 3 yards away from him. And now here is Grealish, who runs into his own player in Akanji. That benefits Guimaraes. Foul in favour of Newcastle. Goal at Easter Road, Kenny Crawford.
Another goal scored by an Australian international. Hibs 3, St Mirren 2. Martin Boyle's 5th goal of the season. The ball broke to him after a bit of pinball in the box, and he smashed it in off the underside of the bar. Hibs 3, St Mirren 2.
Hibs 3-2 up. Aberdeen still lead the 10 men of Ross County by a goal to nil. Rangers 1, Livingston 0. Latest from Anfield, John Bennett.
Leicester on the break here. They've got a chance to equalise. It's Liverpool 2, Leicester City 1. It's gone out for a corner. They should have had a penalty as well. Not given. Liverpool 2, Leicester City 1.
Thank you, John. Commentary of Lincoln against West Ham is on Sports Extra. As the ball is at the moment played out towards that far side for Newcastle United. And the challenge comes in from Sergio Gomez. Newcastle's players are reacting to that challenge. Free kick in favour of the home team.
Well, he's got the card out for Calvin Phillips. I thought it was a good tackle, it was quite robust, but I didn't see anything untoward with it. Anthony Gordon wasn't happy and he brought it to the attention of the referee, but it's going to be a yellow card for Phillips. It's getting really tasty out there, Ian.
That's the first yellow of the game. Pep Phillips shown yellow by Chris Kavanagh. So Newcastle lead by a goal to nil. 66 minutes played. Free kick midway through the Manchester City half, but quite a high line from the sky blue shirts of Manchester City to protect Ortega. As it's floated in now by Target. Edge of the area. Lascelles gets his head onto it. Header from Joel Linton, cleared by Gvardiol. Picked up by Almiron into the path of Tonali with a cut back and delivered with pace. That came off the legs of Gvardiol. Could have gone anywhere behind for a corner.
Yeah, he didn't know much about it, Gvardiol. Another nice little underlap from Tonali. Fizzes it across and Gvardiol just gets enough on it. Looks like there's going to be a change now, Ian, for City. Whether they do it before the corner or not, but there's a couple of them warming up here at the kit off.
Mateus corner kick to be taken on that far side. Nunes and Doku are the players who are going to be coming on. It's rolled in short. Now played towards Murphy. Murphy chips the ball towards the far post. Out it goes to that far side. Kept in play by Tonali. No, it goes out of play. It'll be a Manchester City throw. And Mateus and Doku are the players who are going to be coming on. A goal at Rangers, Gavin Wallace.
It's a second for Rangers here, Rangers 2, Livingston 0. Ridman Jovad just on the 66th minute. It was a mazy run from his own half. He got all the way to the edge of the box, and what can only really be described as a toe poke into the back of the net. It went at some speed in. Rangers 2, Livy 0.
So here comes the double change that we were talking about. Mateus Nunes coming on, and it's going to be Doku, and the players who are coming off are Kovacic and Ake. Ross County 1, Aberdeen 2 is a score elsewhere in Scotland. No other goals to tell you about in England. So it's an attacking change now being made with a defender coming off as Doku comes on, and Mateus Nunes is the other player who's going to be coming on. So Kanji's gone off, Doku's on, And Mateo Nunes, who was signed from Wolves for £53 million on deadline day, is also coming on to the field of play. And they are the changes being made there. Kovacic only returning after missing the last 3 matches with a back injury. So Nunes and Doku are on, and Manchester City have made the first of their changes. We said about the changes that were going to be made by Pep Guardiola, as Newcastle leading by a goal to nil. We've been playing now, we're midway through the second half, still leading by a goal to nil. Nunes runs into trouble, challenge was made by Guimaraes, says he got the ball. Chris Kavanagh thinks otherwise, and he's brought out his yellow card, and the Brazilian's shown yellow.
That was brilliant defending from McKenzie. It was a lovely little first time pass from Tonali into Gordon, and he's clean through, and McKenzie got across very quickly to get a block on that, otherwise it could have been 2-0.
Let's go to Brentford. Mark Scott.
Massive chance for Brentford to get back level. Keane Lewis Potter off the bench, found himself 6 yards out, got it past Ramsdale, but somehow Kivior got back to clear off the line. Still 1-0 Arsenal.
Just over 20 minutes remain here at St James's Park. This competition has been dominated in recent years from teams in the Northwest. The last 8 years, City have won it 5 times, Liverpool once, Manchester United twice, of course, including last season, as Newcastle know all about. Chelsea in 2015 were the last team outside of the Northwest to win it. Could Everton be progressing? They were, or did have, a 2-goal cushion, but there's been a goal at Villa Park. Ellen Ellard.
Aston Villa 1, Everton 2. A corner Douglas Luiz sent into the area. It pinged out, fell to the feet of Kamara, who sent a powerful shot past Jordan Pickford. Aston Villa 1, Everton 2.
Here is Guimaraes, back to Lascelles. Almiron wants to make the run, and he's tries to be finding him early, but Vardiol accelerates. Ortega had seen the danger as well and gathers it in. We're up to date with the goals elsewhere around the country on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. The Newcastle supporters now will try and play their role for the next 19 minutes, as a pensive Eddie Howe just rubs his right ear as he ponders with Jason Tindall alongside him, protecting this slender lead. Grealish. Nunes goes ahead of him. Grealish finds him. Former Wolves man. Lascelles dragged out of that central position with Nunes. Left side of the penalty area. Tries to do the turn. Lascelles sticking to him. Helped out by Livramento. Back to Sergio Gomez, who's now playing as a more natural right-left-sided player in defence, with Doku, who's occupying a position on the right. Oscar Bob on the inside, Alvarez, Grealish and Nunes at the moment is that front line as you look across that front 5 as it is, with everybody pushed forward and leaving a lot of pressure on Akanji and Gvardiol, with the fullbacks pushed forward at that stage.
You have to say, and Newcastle have been by far the better team second half. It's been a dramatic turnaround in terms of what we saw from the first half. What a statement this would be if Newcastle could go on and win this, and then they would have belief going forward in this competition. As for Pep, I'm surprised at the minute that he's not got, maybe Foden or a Haaland on, and he's trusting the younger players to get them back into the game. But we got 20 minutes to go. It's a big 20 minutes for both teams.
Yeah, about 18, but there'll be a bit of stoppage time added on. But defensively, Newcastle United have been absolutely solid in this second half. Manchester City haven't posed anywhere near the level of the same threat as they did in the first half. Let's go to Lincoln. Chris Coles.
West Ham United are 5 minutes away from knocking League One Lincoln out of the League Cup, but Lincoln are giving it a go. Another good chance. Dylan Duffy from range hit it well, but Lucas Fabianski, who's had to make several good saves tonight, made another. Still Lincoln 0, West Ham 1.
Commentary of that is on Sports Extra. This is 5 Live. Let's get an update from Liverpool. John Bennett.
Leicester aren't giving this one up. It's Liverpool 2, Leicester 1. But Wilfred Ndidi should have equalised. Through on goal, he delayed. Liverpool were able to clear. Liverpool 2, Leicester 1.
Phil Foden is coming on. Guardiola is certainly mindful of the schedule. Wolves away, Leipzig away, Arsenal away, where Rodri, of course, will be suspended for that game at Arsenal just before the international break. But of course, he wants to win. Does Guardiola? What is it that they've picked up? 18 trophies in their last 14 seasons. That desire, that level of determination. The treble winners want to prolong their stay in the competition, but it's Alvarez who makes way and Phil Foden comes on.
So it looks like he's going to play in the 10 position and they put Bob up front.
So Oscar Bob goes into that central area. Núñez plays it back towards Akanji. Let's get an update from Chelsea. John Southall.
Into the 90th minute of the game. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0. One really good chance for Brighton. Solimarch with a flying header saved by Sanchez to his left-hand side. We will see how much added time there is to go. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0.
I'm mindful of the fact that I read out that stat that they failed to score only once in their last 37, Manchester City. But in the first half, you sensed, as an observer at least, that they were going to score. In the second half, I don't necessarily get that same impression.
No, not at all. I totally agree with you. Nick Pope has had very, very little to do second half. And you're right, first half they were cutting through Newcastle and looking a real threat, but at the minute, Newcastle are very, very stable at the minute and looking more likely to get another goal.
Ball played to Almiron, tries to get away from Sergio Gomez. It's going to go to play for a throw. There's been a goal involving Neil's former side, Leicester City at Anfield. John Bennett.
Yeah, this one's all over. Liverpool 3, Leicester City 1. Amazing skill by Diogo Jota. Let it go through his legs, then flicked it with his back heel into the net. It's Liverpool 3, Leicester City 1.
Well, that's a 7:45 kickoff, of course. They'll be coming to a conclusion very, very soon. Not one of them is going to go at this stage to a penalty shootout, because there is one team or another who's leading. Everton are 2-1 up at Villa. Blackburn are going through. They're 5-2 up at home to Cardiff. Bournemouth are going through, lead Stoke City 2-0. Arsenal are 1-0 up at Brentford. Chelsea have a slender lead at home to Brighton. Fulham lead Norwich 2-1. West Ham are 1-0 up at Lincoln in that Sports Extra commentary. And we've just heard from John at Anfield. This is Grealish cutting inside, opens up for Grealish with the shot. Pope makes the save, right at him.
Great run from Grealish. He uses the run of Núñez, who goes outside, and he uses him as a decoy, cuts inside, opens it up. Just didn't get enough purchase on the shot, and it was straight at Pope, really. He's been disappointing tonight, Jack. There's been bits and pieces of his game, but he's not really been a threat apart from, just bits and pieces, really.
Ball is cleared long by Pope. Akanji waits for it to settle, and then he goes square to Gvardiol, and now with Núñez back to Akanji once again. But Newcastle United at this stage just drop off. Akanji spreads it out towards Rico Lewis. He was impressive in the first half, looking to link up now with Phil Foden. Doku's also on that far side, the right. He passes the ball back to Phillips. He goes square to Núñez. The thing is, because of the quality of Manchester City, they will always, you would think, in the next 15 minutes of normal time, conjure up at least one chance.
You can never write them off, Dano. But there just seems to be, they're not the same sort of fluidity or speed of play that we saw in the first half. Maybe there's a little bit of fatigue, I don't know. But they certainly don't look like cutting Newcastle open at the minute. I mean, you've got to give Newcastle credit as well. The two substitutions have had a huge impact on their performance second half.
Certainly have. As Rico Lewis back to Akanji. Akanji spreads it high and wide near side the left. Grealish's first touch finds Núñez, lays it off to Gomez. That was a little slicker from Manchester City. Left corner of the area, Núñez to Bob. Waits, back towards Núñez. Phillips available square. Keeps it alive. Gvardiol gets it back. Newcastle though are pressing, and Manchester City lose the ball as a result of that press midway through the Newcastle half, and then Almiron tidies it up towards Dummett. By and large, they have protected Pope ever so well. Gordon makes a good turn. Now finds Guimaraes ahead of him. The two substitutes combining. Guimaraes tries to slide it towards Murphy. Rico Lewis attract the run of Murphy. It'll stay in play far side the left. In front of the Gallagate end. Ball played back. Target on the inside, keeping the ball better Newcastle second half. Target then overruns it in saying that, and cleared away by Phillips. Back it goes to Dummett. Now it's with Lascelles. The ball comes forward. Lascelles encouraged to shoot. Gomez goes down off the ball. Play continues. Gomez is down at the moment. Livramento unchallenged on the overlap, and challenged, and it goes behind then for a corner. A goal at Easter Road. Kenny Crawford.
That's it, sealed now, Ian. Hibernian 4, St Mirren 2, and it's Martin Boyle again. He was put clean through in the counter-attack, slotted it past Zach Hemming. Hibs are going into the semi-finals.
It's starting to get heated in the dugout. Pep Guardiola is having a word with Jason Tindall. He does feel extremely aggrieved, Pep Guardiola. He was sarcastically clapping.
Well, Gomez was down, and remember we had the issue with Livramento.
Yes.
And Newcastle didn't put the ball out of play because it looked to me like it was an accidental push anyway. But Guardiola and his assistant wanted the ball put out of play. Newcastle didn't have the right, didn't need to do that. So Guardiola is not happy with I don't know, the respect of the game, if you want to call it that. And he's not been happy for the last 15-20 minutes in with the physicality of Newcastle.
He got shown a yellow card at the weekend. He's been shown a yellow card tonight as the Manchester City manager. 11 minutes to go of normal time. Corner kick for Newcastle, who lead 1-0. It's a corner delivered deep. Joel Linton with a header. Headed out by Guardiola in front of his own goalkeeper Ortega in a crowded 6-yard area. Picked up on that far side by Lascelles. Plays it back towards Tonali. Newcastle's game management second half's been spot on.
Oh, they've been excellent. I don't want to tempt fate here, but I've got to say, I thought Paul Dummett has done excellent as well, considering he hasn't played for, you know, a long period of time. I think he's had a great game at the centre of Newcastle's defence.
Ortega plays it towards Sergio Gomez. Here is Gvardiol. Back to Ortega once again. Phillips now inside the deep. It's outside of his penalty area. Manchester City sky blue shirts playing from right to left. Just over 10 minutes remaining. We'll be getting the full times when they happen elsewhere in the 7:45 kickoffs in the League Cup third round. And the first of those is at Bournemouth. Chris Wise.
Bournemouth 2, Stoke 0. Very little jeopardy in this game after Bournemouth's 2 goals in 3 minutes at the start of the second half. Leading scorer Dominic Solanke and Joe Rothwell with them. Stoke ultimately short on quality. Bournemouth 2, Stoke 0.
Aberdeen are through to the semi-finals of the Scottish League Cup. They've beaten the 10 men of Ross County 2-1. They join Hearts in the semi-finals. Hibs should join them, as too should Rangers. When the full time will bring you news of that. Let's get an update meanwhile from Chelsea. John Southall.
2 minutes to play. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0. Great chance for Brighton though. João Pedro left of the area, smashed it over the bar. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0.
10 minutes remain. It's going to be a Manchester City throw deep inside their own half. Newcastle United still have the lead. Everton and Aston Villa at Villa Park. Alan Ellard.
We're into 5 minutes of time added on. Still Aston Villa 1, Everton 2, but an outrageous effort from Douglas Luiz. An overhead kick just marginally wide of Pickford's post. Aston Villa 1, Everton 2.
Full time now at Brentford. Mark Scott.
Reece Nelson's early goal after a misplaced Jurgensen back pass the difference. Ramsdale made a couple of great saves to keep them ahead. The best a tip onto the post from Wissa. Lewis Potter also denied by a Kiwior clearance off the line. Brentford 0, Arsenal 1.
And I imagine, Kenny, that Hibs are joining Hearts in the semi-finals.
They are indeed, Ian. Hibs 4, St Mirren 2. They're joining Hearts and Aberdeen in the semi-finals of that League Cup. Martin Boyle's late brace, his 5th and 6th goals of the season, ended up being the difference in a frenetic second half. Hibs in the semi-final.
9 minutes remaining here at St James's Park. Our sports extra commentary is finished. Full time now at Sincil Bank. Chris Coles.
West Ham are through. 1-0 winners at Lincoln. Thomas Soucek driving home a front post corner. Lincoln had their chances, especially in the first half, but their threat faded, and it's the Premier League side who avoid the upset. Lincoln 0, West Ham 1.
And Liverpool going through. John Bennett.
Yes, Liverpool 3, Leicester City 1. Leicester gave them a scare after Casey McAteer's early breakaway goal, but Liverpool took control. 3 excellent goals. Gakpo, a Szoboszlai rocket, and a lovely Jota back heel. Liverpool 3, Leicester City 1.
Full time at Craven Cottage. Kelly Summers.
Fulham 2, Norwich 1. The Premier League side are through thanks to an early Vinicius strike, plus a debut Iwobi goal, though Norwich debutant side struck back 3 minutes later to make for a tenser finish than Fulham would have liked, but they were the better side. They're through. Fulham 2, Norwich 1.
Manchester City now with Núñez. Excellent challenge by Livramento. The fullback on the cover in a central area. Just when Núñez is thinking of shooting, Livramento dives in. Manchester City with time running out, trailing still by a 0-0. Oscar Bob, far side. Ball played forward by Núñez. Newcastle are there. Full time now at Stamford Bridge. John Southall.
Chelsea 1, Brighton 0. Much needed win for Chelsea. Much needed goal for Nicholas Jackson came 5 minutes after half time. Cole Palmer with the assist. Finished by Jackson into the bottom left corner. Just before that, Dahoud missed a great chance for Brighton. Also goal disallowed for Jackson. And João Pedro in the 93rd minute smashed one over the bar. Chelsea go through. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0.
Full time at Villa Park. Alan Ellard.
Full time Aston Villa 1, Everton 2. A huge win for Everton, an upset here at Villa Park. Villa were 10 unbeaten here, but poor defending gifted Garner his first goal for Everton in the first half opener. Calvert-Lewin found the back of the net in consecutive games after going one-on-one with the Villa keeper. Kamara got one back for the host, but it was all too little too late for Villa, who crash out in the third round in 3 successive seasons. Full time here, Aston Villa 1, Everton 2.
Blackburn 5, Cardiff 2 is the only 7:45 kick-off that is yet to finish. We've gone around the grounds. We now have 7 minutes remaining, and Manchester City trailing by a goal to nil, and indeed Blackburn have won 5-2. That now is over at Ewood Park. Manchester City have a free kick that is left for Grealish, 30 yards out from goal. Grealish with the outside of his right boot spreads it out to Doku, now playing on the left. Doku though can't get past Livramento. Can't fault Newcastle defensively.
I have to say Livermanto's been terrific tonight, especially in the second half. And we touched on Dummett earlier. Lascelles has come on to the game, and Matt Targett's been pretty steady. So that sort of put together back four. They were really tested in the first half, but they've come through it and done really well second half. City have it all to do here, Ian.
Last time that Newcastle kept 4 successive clean sheets was January. That's what they're looking to do here tonight, still leading with 6 minutes of normal time remaining. Rangers 2, Livingston 0. They're still playing at Ibrox. When that's over, we'll bring the news of that from Gavin Wallace. The last 16 draw still to come. BBC Radio 5 Live with you through until 10:30 tonight. Here is Akanji, controls the ball just outside the centre circle. Out it goes to that far side. Bob plays it back to Akanji. Phillips available and he finds it. England international goes square. Sergio Gomez left to the centre circle, now to Doku on the left hand side, holds off Livramento, wriggles free from Livramento, makes a diagonal run towards goal, slides it through. Foden was there. Pope's anticipation beat him to it.
Oh, so unlucky. Great turn from Doku. First time anyone's got away from Livramento clean tonight. Breaks inside, slides a lovely ball into. Great run from Foden from the central position, but just too much on it. Nick Pope does brilliantly. He's had a good game tonight and all, Nick Pope.
Let's go to Gavin Wallace at Ibrox.
Game, set and match, Ian, to be fair. 84 on the clock, Rangers 3, Livingston 0. It's a brace then for Abdul Sima. His shot from the right hand side, it got deflected in by Louis De Lucas beyond Shamal George, and it is all over by the shouting. Rangers 3, Livy 0.
We have 85 minutes played here at St James's Park on BBC Radio 5 Live. Doku to Nunes, that was hit hard to his feet. Nunes looks to turn on the edge of the area. The layoff by Foden. Doku central area just outside the D. Challenge comes in. Newcastle get the free kick from referee Chris Kavanagh. Pep Guardiola looks nonplussed.
Fantastic work from Almiron. You know, saw the danger, got his body across Doku and wins the foul, and then again gives a bit of respite for Newcastle, because just under the last sort of 5 minutes, City have just stepped it up again, the intensity of their play.
Newcastle United have only had one win in their last 17 games over a 9-year period against Manchester City. However, here at St James's Park, not many teams since Eddie Howe took charge come here to win. Liverpool have done so on 3 occasions, Arsenal once, and Cambridge United the other. They've only suffered 5 defeats in 37 games since December 2021. And once again, under Eddie Howe, St James's Park has been a tough place to get a result for Pep Guardiola's side.
What do you think you make of it if they do go out, Daniel? He's a winner, isn't he? And he'd be disappointed. But in the big scheme of things, will it hurt him that much?
I think he's a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I think after winning the treble last year, they thought, let's go and try and win 4 trophies this year. But this would be a real scalp for Newcastle United, bearing in mind that they were saying nobody wanted to play Manchester City, but haven't really created too much in this second half, have they? Gvardiol to Grealish. Livramento is there. Little stumble from Grealish. Clearance from Livramento, only as far as Gomez to Nunes. Still going, edge of the area, gives it away. Murphy turns. Guimaraes. Joe Linton out towards Gordon. Gordon now running forward. He's got to go it alone. He's running at 3 sky blue shirts, Gordon. He holds onto the ball midway through the City half. Sliding challenge by Phillips. He's given it back towards Gordon. Gordon enters the penalty area, tries to go for goal, and saved by Ortega at his near post. They were appealing for a corner. Just over 2 minutes remain.
Incredible strength and perseverance from Gordon. You know, he had 5 Man City players in his vicinity, yet he still managed to come away from the challenge of Phillips and break into the box and get a shot off.
Tell you what, Eddie Howe will be delighted. He makes 10 changes and they still progress in a cup competition.
Well, look, let's just wait to the final whistle, because you can never rate Man City. You can't rate Man City off. They've created very next to nothing in this half, but you just cannot write them off until that whistle goes.
Here is Doku. I think Newcastle are going to be making a change, and it's going to be Elliot Anderson who's going to be coming on for these closing moments. The amount of added on time will be telling. There's been a number of substitutions. We've had a few injuries as well. It's exact time, remember, so it could be somewhere 6, 7, maybe even 8 minutes. We'll wait and see in about 90 seconds time. But Newcastle still have a slender lead here on 5 Live and BBC Sounds. Gomez along the ground, out towards Doku, level with the penalty area, faced by Livramento, shown on the outside, works over the cross, Foden is there, couldn't hook it goalwards, cleared high by Lascelles, bouncing ball 30 yards out from goal, downward header by Gomez, Phillips touches it towards Akanji, Newcastle have got everybody back behind the ball, Akanji lifts it out, Doku stays out wide left on this near side, Doku then comes on the inside, edge of the area, goes with a square pass, Rico Lewis, narrowly wide, right-footed shot just outside the D. That was close.
Yeah, no, that was the chance. Now they might get one more in injury time, but that was a massive chance. That is by far the best chance of the second half. It's brilliant play from Doku. He slides a square ball across the 18-yard box. Lewis, who's been pretty quiet after being very prominent in the first half, he's found himself a great position on the edge of the box. He's got to hit the target, Deno, and he screwed it wide. That was a big opportunity to equalise.
Sandro Tonali is the player who makes way, and he waits to shake the hand of Eddie Howe, who is busy still getting his final instructions across, as Elliot Anderson now makes way towards Lascelles to get those instructions across to every outfield player. And we'll wait to see when Sam Allison puts up his board, the fourth official, how much on added time. Here we go. 6 minutes. 6 minutes of added on time, as we suspected, when Newcastle still lead by 1-0 on BBC Radio 5 Live. The question is, will Guardiola's team fashion one last chance? Mind you, for the first time I think tonight, he's actually sat down. Is that a sign that he's resigned?
No.
The Manchester City manager?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Oh no, he's back. Didn't last long, did it? He's back on his feet.
He's having a sip.
Phillips collects the ball outside the centre circle, chips it forward, Doku again, beaten to it by Livramento. Livramento waits for the ball to come under control, plays it forward towards Anderson. Anderson over the halfway line, holds off Grealish. Grealish then makes the challenge, out of play, goes for a Newcastle throw. That'll suit Newcastle United.
The beauty of the way it is now, you can't take your eyes off it, then. You wouldn't put it past Newcastle, who are brilliant on the counter-attack, getting another one, or you wouldn't put it past City, working their way up the field and getting an equaliser. So, and I'm so impressed with the Newcastle fitness, because they did a lot of chasing in the first half.
Yes, they did.
And they've lasted the course and distance brilliantly.
Isak's goal is the difference, scored 8 minutes into the second half, as Núñez comes under pressure from Newcastle, with Anderson pressing, Murphy helping him out, Guimaraes, good footwork, runs into trouble. Akanji, shot comes in from Joel Linton, just came to him, it was a snapshot just outside the D. Ortega with a save.
Good effort. It was instinctive and a really good, comfortable save from Ortega.
The 5 Live Football Daily will bring you all the reaction for a busy night of cup football, where we'll be reflecting on that last 16 draw. We'll bring it to you before we go off air, before we hand to Colin Murray at 10:30. Doku is away. The only question remains is, will Manchester City equalise to force a penalty shootout? As the ball was a rather sloppy one, handball against Joel Linton, falls in the favour of Grealish. Dummett again just threw himself at that. Newcastle want to make another change. Cher's going to be coming on. Dummett, I think, is suffering with cramp. I remember years ago Peter Beardsley telling me about Paul Dummett, and he's been hampered and hindered by injuries, now certainly been suffering with cramp, and he's gone down. There's a coming together, but Dummett, he can't continue. I mean, he's played one game. What did I say earlier on? That he'd played one game since February 22.
And he's been outstanding, I have to say, and you know, we talked about him being a really good squad player. Well, he's proved his worth tonight. He's made a couple of great last-ditch interceptions. His defensive prowess has been excellent, and he's given good balance and experience to the back four tonight. But he has run his course tonight.
Rangers have got a fourth goal at home to Livingston. Rangers 4, Livingston 0. Dummett still down. Let's get details of it from Gavin.
Yeah, it was it was a great effort from Ryan Jack just before we head to full time. The edge of the box, Ian, opened his body really nice and put it into the bottom right hand corner, well beyond Jamal George. Icing on the cake, Rangers 4, Livy 0.
We've seen all sides of Guardiola tonight. He was having a handshake with Cher. He's just been whispering in his left ear as he waits to come on. Guardiola. I don't know whether it's a jokey word or whether there's something more to it.
We're having an in-depth conversation, whatever it is, you know. We've seen all sorts of emotions from him tonight. You know, he's been agitated, he's been happy, he's been sarcastic. We're getting the full box of tricks from Pep tonight, but he will be pretty upset deep down inside if to lose this game tonight.
Well, Dummett hobbles off to be replaced by Cher. That will take up at least another 60 seconds of added on time. But my watch, we're 4 minutes of the minimum of 6 where Newcastle are still leading by a goal to 0. And the Newcastle United supporters inside St James's Park looking to go one step better than they did last year in this competition. Could be claiming the mighty scalp of Manchester City. And Eddie Howe making the changes ahead of Burnley's visit. And then next Wednesday, Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. We thought tonight the decimal levels were loud. Wait for Paris Saint-Germain next week in the Champions League, live on 5 Live, incidentally.
What a moment that will be to have Champions League football back here, and, you know, one of the best teams and one of the greatest players in the world. The roof will come off. Oh. You know, as soon as the teams walk out and the music goes up, the roof will come off.
I still remember the euphoric night against Barcelona here under Kenny Dalglish in the late 90s. 4-0 it's finished, by the way, at Ibrox. So Rangers, Aberdeen and Hibs join Hearts in the semi-final lineup in the Scottish League Cup. Newcastle United are 60 seconds and then we're in the hands of the discretion of the referee, Chris Kavanagh, for this League Cup tie here to complete the last 16 lineup, where we have Everton, Blackburn, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Chelsea, Fulham, West Ham, Liverpool to join the 7 sides of last night, Middlesbrough, Exeter City, Ipswich Town, Mansfield, the lowest ranked side left in the competition, Port Vale, Burnley and Manchester United. Newcastle are seconds away from joining them to complete that last lineup. As sliding in was Targett. Targett clears it long away downfield. And the Newcastle supporters know that they're close, Neil Lennon.
Yeah, that's a big interception from Targett. Buys Newcastle a bit more time. The whistles are going around the stadium. This last chance saloon now for City. That looks to be overhit.
Overhit for Doku. The cheers will tell you it was a good 6-7 yards away from the Belgian international. And by my watch, the minimum of 6 minutes have now been used. Some of the black and white scarves are already starting to be swirled around the heads of the fans inside St James's Park. The cameras are trained on Eddie Howe, who's waiting to celebrate. Newcastle United, runners-up last year. Yes, they might have the Champions League to deal with, but they're looking to end that long wait of 54 years. This would be a huge hurdle, albeit only in the last 16. Still a long way to go, but they've removed one of the favourites in Manchester City if it stays like this. Oscar Bob. Now nearly 7 minutes. Bob with a cross into the penalty area. Attacked by Lascelles. The referee is poised. There is the final whistle. Newcastle United inflicts Manchester City's first defeat of the season. Handshakes between Guardiola and Eddie Howe. St James's Park celebrates Alexander Isak's only goal. 8 minutes into the second half, sufficient to take Newcastle into the last 16.
Well, Dan, it was the proverbial game of 2 halves, really, wasn't it? You know, Man City dominated the play, dominated the chances first half. Eddie Howe makes 2 changes, bringing on Gordon and Gomares, and the whole shift of the game changed. And The difference was that Newcastle got the opportunity, Isaac took it, and they were able to hold on it's a famous win, I think, for Newcastle, and a statement win for the rest of the season.
A fourth successive clean sheet too, Steve. First time since January they've achieved that. Newcastle United have knocked out Manchester City by 1-0.
Pep Guardiola is not happy. He is remonstrating with the officials as we speak. But Neil Lennon, Newcastle United earned this.
Yeah, I mean, they adjusted it at half-time. They didn't deserve anything from the first half, Steve.
Yeah.
But the second half performance was terrific. It was full of aggression. It was full of speed. It was full of good defending when they needed to. You know, Nick Pope didn't really have a lot to do. They had one great chance, City, with the Rico Lewis shot that he put wide. But overall, you know, Newcastle's performance in the second half fairly murdered the win. Pep will be really disappointed, and he's not happy. I don't think he's happy about the robustness of some of the challenges, and he's wishing the Newcastle players all the best, but you can just tell there's a sarcasm about him, you know, walking off the pitch tonight.
He's sort of shaking hands with the players, saying well done, and then having a stern word in their ear.
Yeah, you're just wondering how much he means it.
Yeah, it's sort of like, well done, good game. Anyway, that thing that you did in the 63rd minute, it goes without saying, Ian, I know, but they've been waiting all these long years for a trophy. If you can beat Manchester City, forget the changes, you can beat anybody.
Well, that's how Eddie Howe will see it. I mean, I think the beauty of his point of view is that he'd made 10 changes, you know, with the exception of Pope from the weekend. And it was the 2 changes at the start of the second half that swung it, with Gordon and Guimaraes coming on. That was where Newcastle United had changed their approach, whether it was a confidence with the team that they had all of a sudden. But they were rewarded with that goal from Isak early in the second half. But, you know, Eddie Howe has got to manage these uncharted waters, really, for Newcastle United since, 20 years since they were last in the Champions League. So they are going to face this intense schedule of games that Manchester City and the bigger clubs have been used to over recent years. But at the end of it, the Newcastle supporters want a trophy. Are they going to win the Champions League? Unlikely. Could they win the League Cup? Absolutely.
Eddie Howe wandering around the pitch now with a very calm look on his face, but inside, I bet he is absolutely dancing. Much more reaction to come from Neil and Ian at St James's Park, where Newcastle have knocked Manchester City out of the League Cup. We've got the quarter-final draw on the way, the last 16 draw on the way as well very shortly. It is the quarter-finals tonight in the Scottish League Cup, and Rangers have booked their place in the last 4. Gavin Wallace.
They have indeed, Steve. Rangers 4, Livingston 0. Rather routine evening for the Glasgow side, who overall commanded this quarter-final. The opener came on 10 as Abdullah Sima stole the ball off of Jamie Brandon down on the left. Livy more or less stopped. The Senegalese didn't, open his body really well and slotted beyond George and goal. The second was a direct run by the defender Ridvan Yilmaz on 66. That culminated in what you could call a fancy toe bash into the bottom corner. A deflected Abdullah Sima shot very late on, coupled with a Ryan Jack effort, ensure that the 27-time winners are now heading for the semis. Rangers 4, Livingston 0.
So Rangers into the semi-finals, so too Hibs, who beat St Mirren by 4-2, and Aberdeen, who beat Ross County by 2-1. They join Hearts in the semi-final draw, which is coming up shortly as well, so we'll bring that to you if we can before Colin Murray at 10 o'clock. We will have the draw in the League Cup as well very shortly. So Everton there, they beat Aston Villa by 2-1. Blackburn beat Cardiff 5-2. Bournemouth 2, Stoke City 0. Brentford 0, Arsenal 1. Chelsea 1, Brighton 0. Fulham 2, Norwich 1. Lincoln 0, West Ham 1. Liverpool 3, Leicester 1. And as you've just been hearing, Newcastle United 1, Manchester City 0. All the reaction and the draws on the way after the news on 5 Live with Tim Daly.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The GB News presenter Dan Wootton has been suspended from the channel after his colleague Lawrence Fox made sexist comments on his programme. Mr Fox has also been dropped while the broadcaster investigates remarks made about Ava Evans, the political correspondent for the news website Joe. Ms Evans has told the BBC she's had an email from the channel's editor.
Do you know, that's actually probably the best apology I could have gotten. I honestly, not to cast doubt on our media landscape, but I didn't actually think anything was going to happen of it, especially not when I first saw the clip last night. I didn't think anything was going to come off of it. I don't want to say I'm pleased by it. I just think that that's probably the best outcome I could have hoped for.
The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, says he's absolutely heartbroken after a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death in Croydon. She was on her way to school when the attack happened this morning. A 17-year-old boy, who police think knew the victim, has been arrested. A report found around 1 in 6 species in the UK is at risk of extinction. The State of Nature document warns the country is now one of the most nature-depleted on Earth. Also today, environmental campaigners have angrily criticised the government's decision to approve drilling on the largest untapped oil field in the UK. Rosebank is around 80 miles west of Shetland. And an abandoned dog is poised for a new, long and happy career after joining a police force. Sid, a Belgian shepherd, was found wandering the streets before being taken in by Cardiff Dogs Home and then adopted by South Wales Police. And that's the news on 5 Live.
This is Newcastle.
Yeah, we got to move opening positions. Careful of signs with the DRS though. It's fighting for a bigger result. So it's an instruction, George. Swap positions.
The DRS aid from Lewis Hamilton to his teammate George Russell came too late.
F1.
Max Verstappen crosses the line, 26 points in the bag, and Red Bull clinch the second consecutive Constructors title.
Get reaction and analysis from the Japanese Grand Prix with 5 Live's Checkered Flag podcast.
Available now on BBC Sounds.
This is 5 Live Sport with Steve Crossman.
On 5 Live. Listen on BBC Sounds.
All of the reaction to the Scottish League Cup and EFL Cup matches tonight between now and 10:30 when Colin Murray will take over. Let's start with the big story of the night. Newcastle United have knocked Manchester City out of the EFL Cup. It's the treble winners' first defeat of any kind this season. Neil Lennon was watching with Ian Dennis.
Yes, Manchester City's winning run comes to an end after 6 successive victories. They've been knocked out by a 0-0. Alexander Isak with the only goal of the game 8 minutes into the second half, for a reward for Newcastle's positive start to the restart, prompted by the double substitution with the introduction of Guimaraes and Gordon. But really in the first half, Manchester City were just so dominant. They bossed the game. They created most of the chances. Alvarez had an effort saved by the Pope of Feet. He had another across the face of goal, and Oscar Barber, a young Norwegian under-21 international, had a couple of chances too where you're thinking have a go at goal, but he didn't. It was unselfish, and I think Guardiola shared those sentiments as well. So they didn't take their chances, and then in the second half they were nowhere near the same level, unable to create anywhere near the same level of threat, and Newcastle defensively solid as they kept a 4th successive clean sheet.
Neil, the first half was very much Manchester City's, but after half-time Newcastle were transformed.
Yeah, well, whatever Eddie has said, probably look, can we get closer? It's a difficult thing to do, and then obviously the 2 changes just give them better balance and better quality and better belief in themselves, and they came out of the blocks brilliantly in the second half. And in the first 3 or 4 minutes they had more territory and created more excitement than they had done in the first 45, and eventually the goal came. It was brilliant work from Jacob Murphy, and then Joe Linton. It was smashed across the box, and Isak had the easiest of tasks to tap it in at the far post, and then they defended resolutely when they needed to, but they always looked the threat on the counter attack. And City and maybe Pep might think it's one that got away from them. Such was their dominance in the first half, but the subs even came on. They didn't really create a great deal in the second half, and sometimes you can lose that momentum, and the momentum was definitely with Newcastle for large parts of the second half. It was a great cup tie, very aggressive, very fast in the second half. And, a big statement win for Newcastle tonight.
I was just checking, Neil. Manchester City had 2 shots on target in the whole match. One of them was a good nick pup save from Alvarez. But you expect, if you take the lead against Manchester City, regardless of how many changes either side have made, you think you're going to come under incredibly intense pressure. They didn't create all that much in the end.
No, they didn't, and they didn't have that sort of wave of pressure that you're talking about, Steve, either. Newcastle defended the box pretty well. They did have one great opportunity when it opened up and Doku slid it across the edge of the box to Rico Lewis, who was really prominent in the first half, I have to say, Steve, but second half, we hardly mentioned him. I think that was the effect that Gordon had on keeping him sort of in a defensive role. But he opened up his body, the whole goal to aim at, and he screwed it wide, and that was it for Man City. After that, the game had gone.
We'll talk about Manchester City in a moment, Ian, but Eddie Howe said before the match, effectively this is their opportunity to show that they can cope with these different competitions. What an unbelievable response this is to their first Champions League game. Great draw in Milan. They put 8 past Sheffield United and then beat the treble winners.
Well, if you think before that Milan game, they'd had 3 straight defeats going into that Brentford game, and I remember Alan Shearer on 5 Live saying, well, that's a must-win game for Newcastle United. And not only did they get that, they got the clean sheet, and then that set them in good stead for Milan. And whilst they were never in it from an attacking sense in San Siro last week, defensively, they got the clean sheet despite the wasted chances of Milan, and then they've built on that against Sheffield United. And all of a sudden, you find yourself with a little bit of momentum building, don't you? And that's all of a sudden that they've got now. They've got these 4 successive clean sheets. They'll go into the Burnley game here at home, and then they've got Paris Saint-Germain coming to town next week. So Newcastle United are just starting to get a bit of it's like a mini revival after those 3 straight defeats. They're unbeaten in 4.
How good was Livramento tonight, Neil?
I thought he had a great game. Maybe not so much on the ball in the first half, but he had to deal with Grealish, and then he had to deal with Doku, and he handled them both pretty well, I have to say. And for the kid coming in, he's got Kieran Trippier in front of him at the minute. The Newcastle fans took to him. I thought he defended brilliantly at times. Looks a good size. But I have to pay a tribute to the whole back four. That was put together tonight, Steve. Target, Livramento, Dummett, who hadn't played for over a year, was fabulous. Lascelles came on to the game, and the fitness levels as well, because they had to chase the ball a lot in the first half, and that not only fatigues you physically, but mentally as well. But second half they were really strong, and I pay them a lot of credit tonight for the
stand by, Neil. We can hear live from Eddie Howe with Juliet Farrington.
Eddie, that was some turnaround for you.
Yeah, it was I thought a really good display from the players. A difficult first half. We slightly imbalanced, I felt. Made some changes at half time, much better. Thought the second half display was very, very good, and I don't know whether we deserved it, because there was a game of sort of few chances, but the players' attitude was first class.
On the second half performance, you did, because you had that balance, you made the substitutions, they made that impact, and there was so much more intensity.
Yeah, as I say, first half we tried to rotate the squad, we tried to make sure that we kept our players fresh and hopefully injury free. But second half we were better for sure. But when you bring players like Anthony Gordon on and Bruno on, then you know you're going to be better, I think, just because they're high level players. And yeah, it was much better feel about the team, much better rhythm about the team in the second half. I thought we defended well all game though.
You said you were going to make changes. We saw the 10 changes before kick-off. During that first half, what were you thinking?
I was just thinking we needed to be better. We were a little bit stuck in possession. I thought they pressed us really well, and we never got going really. I think we had the one chance with Jacob Murphy broke, but I have to say that the reason we won the game is because we didn't concede in that first period. So although we were under pressure for the 4th game in a row, I thought we defended really, really well. So credit to the whole team for that.
And what does it mean now? Manchester City, obviously so popular in this competition, they have won it so many times. This is such a huge scalp for Newcastle at such an early stage, because no one really wanted to face them so early in this competition.
No, when the draw came out, it wasn't a great feeling, I'm sure, for anyone. But I think then once it settles down and you know what you've got to face, you've just got to give your best and try and win the game. And I think it's actually good that we play Manchester City on a regular basis, because it's the only way you're going to get better and closer to them. An outstanding team, and I think you saw that tonight. Of course, they made changes, we made changes. It made it quite an interesting game because we didn't quite know what to expect from them. But again, the mentality of the group to win that game wasn't easy, and I have to credit everybody for that.
And that's just it. You learn from the group of players out there tonight. It was a test, it was a challenge that they have come through. Yeah,
and I think we get better for that, and I think when you compete against these teams, if you can win and find a way to win, it just elevates your confidence levels and how you feel about everything that you're delivering. So good signs for us, but now we return to earth very quickly because we have another Premier League game in such a quick turnaround.
Good feeling though for you tonight. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe live on 5 Live with Juliet Farrington. Yeah, you just used the word, Neil Lennon, there. It elevates you. Is that what this win can do for Newcastle United? Can it elevate them?
Yeah, it just gives you such a shot in the arm, Steve, and confidence. Like, those players who haven't played for a long time and played tonight, they'll get a huge lift and a buzz from that. And of course, he's kept a lot of the players who've been playing quite fresh. Your Trippiers, your Burns, even Guimara's, I know Guimara's got a half tonight. You know, Callum Wilson still to come back as well. So look, momentum, as Dano touched on earlier, it's really important at any club and at any point of the season. Certainly Newcastle have got that, and you're right, this will elevate them. You know, they've got big games coming up, and obviously Premier League game at the weekend, but a huge game in the Champions League with PSG coming to town, and everyone will be looking forward to that now.
I also think his reaction there was quite interesting in that last season, whenever they had really big wins, you know, you would see them celebrate them a bit and they would have a massive photo of everyone in the dressing room and it became quite a regular thing. He looked very level at full time and he sounded very level in that interview.
I think he's exhausted.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think he's knackered after that because it was high octane football, and you know, it takes a lot out of you, you know, as a coach. You know, your concentration levels are, you know, added for 97 minutes or whatever. But yeah, I think he's probably learned a little bit about that now. He's managing a big club with big expectations. You have to stay level, not get too high, not get too low. And Eddie's learning, you know, how to manage a big club, and he's doing it brilliantly at the minute.
I've got to say, I've always found him to be quite level. Even during his Bournemouth days, he never would get carried away after a victory, and he'd never get too downbeat after a defeat.
Yeah, but I think Steve's talking about, you know, taking photographs after the big win and stuff like that. I don't really agree with that, and I think, you know, they're learning as they go along and how to really behave like a big club now.
Neil, just before we let you go, let me ask you on Pep Guardiola, and I'm effectively asking you a question that you've already asked yourself, because you said to Ian in commentary, if they lose this, what will Pep do? Do you think he will try and use it to ignite something?
Yeah, well, definitely. You know, he's a winner. You know, and he'll be angry, but maybe a little bit with himself and maybe with some of the players. But the game was there for them, particularly in the first half. I don't know, like, you know, if he's got Haaland on the bench, he never used him. You know, you've gone out of the competition, so he'll be pleased with some aspects of the play, but deep down inside, he will be fizzing, and he'll use that as a motivation going forward.
Neil, brilliant to have you with us as always.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you very much. Top man, Neil Lennon, who's been with us tonight on 5 Live Sport. Ian staying with us. We've got the draw coming up shortly as well. Just to tell you, in the Scottish League Cup semi-final, the draw has just taken place. Ties to be played the weekend of the 4th and 5th of November. Hearts versus Rangers and Hibs versus Aberdeen. Let's go up to Scotland now, shall we? And bring in Gavin Wallace, who watched Rangers beat Livingston. Gavin.
Yeah, good evening, Steve. It was routine for Rangers, and they end up here in Ibrox tonight, but it's quite tasty. I think the big thing you take from that is you could still have an Edinburgh derby. Neil's former team Hibs seem to be kind of getting some sort of momentum about them since Nick Montgomery has come over from Australia, so they obviously came back from behind tonight. They had to really dig deep against a St Mirren team who are unbeaten in the league. They're sitting 2 points behind Celtic, 2 points ahead of Rangers in the league. Aberdeen starting to find some form at the moment, although they've only won one game in the league this season. Rangers haven't last won the competition in 2011 as well. Hearts have only won it 4 times. It was a difficult game for them last night at Rugby Park. We were there, I covered that for 5 Live last night, and it was just a moment of genius from Rangers loanee Alex Lowry in the dying embers of that game. So I think this is really, really wide open, but if you look at it from a Rangers point of view, what we're covering tonight, Rangers fans will be demanding that Michael Beale and his men win this competition. I don't think there's any other outcome that could come for Rangers. Anything else would be complete failure. It would probably put a big dent in their season. They're 4 points behind Celtic right now. Celtic obviously not in the competition. They went out to Kilmarnock, who went out last night, so it should be interesting to see how it goes.
Gavin, thank you very much indeed. That's Gavin Wallace. Let's come back into the League Cup, and we'll have the draw for the last 16 very shortly. The former Tottenham defender Stephen Kelly and Chris Coles watched West Ham knock out League One Lincoln City, but they gave him a really good game, Chris.
They did, yeah, absolutely. It could have been very different for Lincoln. They gave it a go, ultimately lacking the finishing quality that West Ham eventually found. Thomas Souček turning home a front post corner, which will really annoy the League One side, because they repelled West Ham fairly comfortably from open play, and it's a pretty straightforward set piece they're undoing. Their best chance, Rico Hackett, free header from 6 yards in the first half, powered it straight at Lucas Fabianski, who made some pretty good saves in the second half. But once West Ham hit the front, they always looked in control, and their excellent start to the season continues.
It's hard to know, Stephen, where this competition is going to sit for West Ham amidst everything else that they've got going on.
Yeah, you would think that European football would have a higher pecking order when it comes to this, but to be fair, they turned up today, and it just shows that they changed 10 players, but they still had a very talented side out on the pitch. They struggled at times though. Lincoln really put it to them in the first half. They'd be ruining the chances they missed, and like Chris said, to concede from a set play, they'd be devastated to give a goal away like that. Didn't make West Ham work for it. But then once they conceded, West Ham just kind of fell into the trap of just keeping the ball, better possession, and the players that have quality. Kudus really stood out, and I think he's going to be one that pushes for that first team in the next few weeks or so. He's going to be an influential player for them over the course of the next season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it almost feels unfair on Lincoln to have unleashed a player like that on them, who's come with a big transfer fee and a lot of expectation.
Yeah, it really does. And you know what, you can just, players like that just stand out. Little things they do, their movement, their shoulders, the scanning off the ball. When he received it, even if he was on the blind side, he would still get himself in a good position, body position, and manipulating the ball into a place where he'd draw a foul. And then the pace and the injection of pace when he started driving with it. He was playing like central midfield off the front, and then he went out to the right wing position, and he was the best player on the pitch, the most talented player on the pitch, and someone that, to be honest, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing more of in the Premier League.
So Stephen is staying with us, and we still got Ian Dennis as well. Let's go to Anfield now, where Liverpool came from behind to beat Leicester. John Bennett.
Yeah, 3-1 win for Liverpool in the end, but Leicester City have been a joy to watch at times this season under their new manager Enzo Maresca, and that quality was clear for all to see after just 3 minutes when they took the lead. A lovely flowing counter-attack move. Casey McAteer finishing it superbly one-on-one. Slowly but surely, though, it was Liverpool's top end of the Premier League quality that came through. The impressive 17-year-old Ben Doak hit the bar. Connor Cody on his Leicester debut saved an effort off the line. Then finally, early in the second half, Cody Gakpo equalised with a shot on the turn. Sub Dominic Szoboszlai hit a rocket of a shot to make it 2-1. And Diogo Jota's beautiful back heel flick wrapped it up late on. So plenty of positive, Steve, for Leicester, even after making 10 changes to their lineup today. And Jurgen Klopp's side, despite an early scare, are safely through.
And we can hear now from Jurgen Klopp.
It was not the best start. It was actually the opposite. And, when you saw a lot of football games in these moments, things can turn in a completely wrong direction. So, but we had already massive chance in the first half. Like, you couldn't believe that we didn't equalize or score twice or 3 times even. But we have to say that Leicester is really, really good side, very well set up, very well coached, obviously had a clear idea. We had to adapt what we did, thankfully, and then second half, minute by minute, we then really turned it around, and that was a really good performance. And so many wonderful individual performances, obviously, so little stories which Carabao Cup delivers from time to time, and really pleased with the night.
3 beautiful goals, particularly Dominic Szoboszlai. Just how quickly has he become one of your most important players? Just give us an appreciation of him, and also Ben Doak. You mentioned him. Just how good could he be in the future?
Dom is obvious a surprise in the when you think about the time he needed to find into the game, not only into the team, not only off the pitch but on the pitch as well. And I think that happened in pretty much a split second when he arrived. Boop, that's it. And that's pretty special. He's a top-class player with a lot of quality, and he came on at 2 difficult moments. Stepped on the ball. I was already afraid that something happened there. Lost the next ball, but then he never stops actually, and he learns a lot from the game.
That's Jurgen Klopp. Let's get some reaction from Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea beat Brighton by 1-0. John Southall was there to see the winner of their Goal of the Month competition.
Yes, indeed, the goal of the month. I'm just down in the tunnel, actually. We've just spoken to both managers. We'll hear from Maurizio Pochettino in a minute. But as you say, it's a much-needed win this for Chelsea. It's a much-needed goal for Nicholas Jackson. Their problems this season have been interlinked. The decisive strike 5 minutes after half-time. Lovely through ball from Cole Palmer, and Jackson swept it into the bottom left-hand corner. Chelsea's first goal in September. Just before that, Damoun missed a great chance for Brighton, and for once this season, Chelsea made them pay. Jackson had another goal disallowed for offside. Robert Sanchez denied Solly March. Then in the 93rd minute, João Pedro left of the area, smashed it over the crossbar, and Brighton went out of the cup. So after 3 defeats and no goals, Chelsea have a win. A significant night for them and for the manager Maurizio Pochettino.
I think it's really important to build our confidence. Always it's important go through to a competition that we can be involved until to the end, and important for our player and for the fans to feel again the victory.
Cole Palmer's just walked past. How crucial could he be for you? Because it's a lovely little ball for the goal.
Yes, I seen he's a fantastic player. He's a very talented player. He's really young. Arrived so late in the last day on the transfer window, but need time to fit, settle on the team. But start to show the quality that he has in his feet.
You've spoken a lot about Nicholas Jackson and his discipline and yellow cards. So how pleased are you tonight that he's got a goal?
Yeah, so in football it's difficult to have patience, and then with a player that is so young and a striker and need to be important for the team. Always we told you that he work ethic, how he press, how he run, how he work for the team is amazing, and only need time to start to score goal. Hope that this goal can build his confidence and trust, and we can get the momentum or to build the momentum from now.
I was going to say, is this what he needs? Will a goal? Is he a confidence player? Will a goal?
Yes, I think the striker need to fill the net, and I think it's important goal for him. Very, very important.
And how important is the win for your group of players and the belief and the feeling?
No, really important because we are a very young team that we need the confidence and the trust. I think the quality is there. It's only in that type of circumstance, and the process is about to build our trust through victories. Always important. When you don't win, always it's difficult because you are anxious and you feel a little bit the pressure. But I think today we managed really well the pressure, and I think I want to congratulate the player because they were fantastic.
I think Johnny said the word confidence about 5 times in that 1 minute and 20 seconds. And we reflected on it before the game. He said you can't buy confidence at the supermarket. So when that goal went in, did Jackson look different? Did Chelsea feel different?
They looked a little bit more confidence in the side, but I think it's going to take a while, isn't it? Jackson actually could have had hat-trick. He was denied by the goalkeeper, then he had one disallowed. He celebrated for about a minute afterwards, actually. Then suddenly, like all of us, realised it had been disallowed. But I think it will help him. I think it will help him massively. Emmanuel Broja came on as well. I think he's got quite a big role to play in the side. Also, Cole Palmer, we just mentioned him in the interview. I think once he settles in as well, he could be really important. Actually, we interviewed him a moment ago and said to him, what have you learned? What's been the most difficult thing since you've been at the club? And he must have thought about it for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then he goes, I'm really struggling with the cooker and the washing machine.
Brilliant.
Washing machine.
I mean, those things can be complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, one other thing, Roberto De Zerbi's just been down as well. And interestingly, he said I think he's finding it difficult to juggle all the games they've got and all the tournaments they've got. So, in a strange way, they want to win every game, but they might not be massively disappointed to go out tonight. They've made 29 changes, Brighton, in the last 4 games. They play early on Saturday, and then, of course, they're back in Europe next week as well.
John, thank you very much indeed. So Chelsea through, and so are Arsenal. Mark Scott.
That's right, Steve. Reece Nelson's early goal after a misplaced Euronson back pass, sending Arsenal through against a Brentford side that was certainly very flat in the first half, but improved after the break. And Aaron Ramsdale, who was back in the Arsenal goal, made a couple of very good saves to keep the Gunners in front. The best of them, a tip onto the post from Johan Visser. Excellent work from Ramsdale. Lewis Potter had a chance as well when he managed to get the ball past Ramsdale, but Kivior was in the right place to clear off the line. So Mikel Arteta delighted to go through, especially after making 8 changes for the game.
Yes, a lot of changes, a lot of players out, 7 players out for this game, and we had to adapt, and we came to a really, really tough place. We know that. They played the strongest 11 that they had on the field, and 2 different halves. The first one, we had total control of the game, scored the goal and probably should have scored more. We didn't, and then we played for 25-30 minutes the game that Brentford won it, and that's a nightmare to play because it's a long throw, it's a set piece, it's a long ball, a duel, and they are really good at maintaining momentum once they get in that roller coaster.
Everyone wants to talk to you about goalkeepers. Does tonight prove, though, what you said, that you've got 2 number ones with those saves that Aaron made?
Well, if you ask me the question, I think I was the one who brought Aaron when everybody was questioned. So now I have to reply questions about Aaron? Really? I don't think I'm that person.
I mean that it backs up your point, though, because you were saying, weren't you, that they're sort of equal number ones, and he showed tonight his quality.
But I don't think that Aaron has the number 1 on his back, and Martin has number 8. Nobody has the number 2. Who is the number 2? Saliba, no?
So I understand what you're saying, but I just
I'm really happy for Aaron and the way he has behaved the last few weeks, the way he trains every single day, how they are interacting with each other and helping each other, not with them, with the defenders, with the players, with Jaco, with Tomiyasu. I'm delighted. And when we need him today, he saved us. And that's the role and what we expect from every single player. And I'm delighted that he helped again.
And he gives you a nice headache for the weekend, I guess, as well. So much competition for places.
Yes, I would like more headaches because we have 7 players out at the moment for Saturday. And hopefully we can have some back.
Mikel Arteta with Mark Scott. Let's go back to St James's. More reaction on Newcastle's win over Manchester City. Here's Pep Guardiola.
No, it was really good game, tight game, cup game. So congratulations Newcastle for the victory. We make a fantastic first half. I could not expect different the second half, that they didn't increase their intensity like Bruno and the other one. They were more aggressive. They could not accept as a team the way we played in the first half, and they found the goal early, but at the end, we were there, and we were brilliant in all departments. So I'm very pleased for the players to play regularly, how good they play. Rico, Oscar, Sergio, Calvin, so Jack, he didn't make a proper pre-season after have an injury, and so need time. It's a good 90 minutes for him.
Oscar Bob, so many people talking about him in the first half. Had he taken those chances, not being so unselfish, perhaps it would have been a different scoreline.
Yeah, that situation, the 2-1 with Julian, should have finished because it was in the left foot. It's normal. So this guy is always there, generous with the team, but we'll learn. So at the end, it's a good, incredible proof for him, to play 90 minutes, 96 minutes, and that was really good.
And with yourself, you got a yellow card. Was that just frustrations towards the end with you?
No problem. I accept everything. So everyone do his job. They do the job, I do my job.
Pep Guardiola with Juliet Farrington. The draw is just about to get underway for the last 16 of the League Cup. Newcastle United in it, Manchester City not in it. He sounded a little bit more relaxed, Pep Guardiola there, Ian, but there's always an edge behind the scenes.
Yeah, when he says I accept everything, you've then got to remember the altercation or the difference of opinion, should I say, between him and Jason Tindall when he wasn't happy about some of the challenges that Newcastle were putting in.
Stephen Kelly is with us as well. No, I know you haven't been at the game, but you almost don't need to have been to recognise the size of the achievement for Newcastle United, Stephen. We've talked all night really about how long they've been waiting for a trophy, and this is only their first game in the competition, but what a marker to put down.
Oh, well, the hardest part of winning that trophy is getting City out of competition, I'd say. So to do it this early on, and I think I heard you speaking about it, on the back of what's been, not a great start to the season, but then going away to AC Milan, absolute thumping performance the weekend, and then beat Man City like that. That's a great few days for them. The confidence must be so high, and just when you bring on players like Marias and Gordon, and they have such an impact, like I've heard just there, they put some stuff in good stead, and the confidence will just be growing in that squad. So yeah, a massive scalp for Newcastle.
And Eddie Howe was saying nobody wanted to play Manchester City. The draw's just started now. No one wants to go away to Newcastle.
No, they certainly won't. I mentioned in the commentary about how since he took over, going back to December 2021, they've lost 5 times, and in 38 games now, and 3 of those have been against Liverpool. The only other Premier League side to have won here is Arsenal back in May, and then you think of Cambridge United in the FA Cup. So Newcastle United are a very, very hard side to play against, and you heard from Eddie Howe earlier the way that he's made the changes, he's kept players fresh. This for him is huge now. They've got a clean sheet, they've knocked out Manchester City, they've kept players fresh for Burnley and Paris Saint-Germain that's going to come over the next few days. To navigate his way through and be building momentum all the time, it's that they'll want definitely a home draw, and like you'll say, nobody will relish the chance to come to St James's Park in the last 16.
Already, we've got League 2 Mansfield against League 1 Port Vale, so one of those two is going to be in the quarter-finals. Ipswich will play Fulham. And Ian, how about this? Manchester United versus Newcastle United.
Wow. Well, Newcastle United, they'll be thinking, blimey, bearing in mind that I think they played Premier League opposition throughout the whole of last season on the route to the final. Although they... I know Manchester United improved with the performance against Crystal Palace last night, and they'll feel that they've turned a corner. But on current form, Manchester United won't be looking forward to taking on Newcastle United, but that I'm sure is probably going to be the tie of the round, a repeat of last year's final.
Yeah, absolutely. And wow, that is a fantastic tie for them. Bournemouth, by the way, are going to be at home to Liverpool in the last 16 as well. Chelsea, of course, have just won at home against Brighton. They'll be at home again, and they're going to play Blackburn in the fourth round. Nothing really to compete with Man United Newcastle yet, Stephen.
No, not yet. Chelsea Blackburn though, if Chelsea don't continue on and pick up from where they got today, that's a tough game. Blackburn won convincingly and got some decent attacking players. But no, yeah, the draw so far is the Newcastle Manchester United one. That'd be a cracking game. But Newcastle go into it with nothing to fear, and they would have learned lessons from the final last year. They got Manchester United, we got thinking they wouldn't have wanted them at all in the next round.
That's the Chris Sutton derby, of course, Chelsea versus Blackburn. We've not had that one for a while. Arsenal have just come out of the hat. They're going to be away at West Ham United, so another tough one for them. And again, they're staying in London. Should say this is the first time within the draw that you have non-regionalised fixtures, so you can end up going everywhere. Everton versus Burnley, the Sean Dyche derby, Ian Dennis.
Where's that at?
It's Everton.
It's Everton. That's an excellent result, that, for Everton tonight at Villa, because I saw the game in the league in the league, and they were dreadful that day, and all of a sudden now, Everton are just starting to get. I think Sean Dyche is just starting to get his way a little bit now in terms of the way that he wants them to play. So that's an excellent result at Aston Villa.
Now, we all said nobody wants to go to St James's Park. Exeter City will be at home to Middlesbrough, and that is the final draw. I think, to be honest, I think if you were Michael Carrick, Stephen, probably Exeter would have been the last place you would want to go, just because nobody wants a long old trip midweek at this stage of the season. No,
that is a trek for them, isn't it, get down there? But listen, it's a team that they can beat. Carrick will be looking to get himself in the next round. Bit of momentum building, I know it's a championship, but any wins you can pick up, and if it's cup, it gives your team confidence. So but that's a tough fixture to travel all that way midweek.
700-mile round trip is the reward that Middlesbrough get for knocking out Bradford City. Thanks, Ian.
Cheers, Steve.
Ian, thank you very much. That's Ian Dennis, and Stephen Kelly has been with us as well on Five Lives. But there you go. That is the full draw for the fourth round of the League Cup, the last 16. And Colin Murray is next. Hi, Colin.
Love a draw. Happy to be laid on for that. The first one out there was Mansfield Port Vale.
Yeah.
And as you say, this is the first non-regionalised draw. So if you're a Mansfield fan, a Port Vale fan, you're thinking, right, let's get down to the Emirates. Let's get down to the bridge. We'll even take Craven Cottage at the London Stadium. Or what about a trip up to St James's Park or Anfield? A38 as the crow flies.
Do you know what? It's the biggest.
An hour down the A38.
It's the biggest nonsense about cup draws, isn't it? If you're a team if you're a fan of a team who's outside the Premier League, this idea that what you really, really want is a tie against somebody that you play quite often. It's not what you want at all. You want the best possible draw.
Here's my theory. This is what we should do. You get the last 16 of this tournament, which is I think it's an important tournament.
So we're changing the competition now. Go on.
You should take the eighth, and I don't think this is barmy.
Okay.
You take Exeter, you take Mansfield, you take Port Vale, you take Blackburn, and if you need to take in terms of league positions as well, so you might end up putting Everton in that side of the 8, it doesn't matter. But you take the 8 teams, the lowest ranked in terms of the pyramid, and you put them 1 to 8, and you draw them out against the top 8.
And then it's a cage match.
And then they decide where they want to play it for the revenue as well.
Oh, that is quite good.
Right. So you could then get Mansfield at home to Liverpool, and they offer Liverpool to switch at the Anfield. And given the disparity in money at the top and the bottom, it would make a huge difference, because Mansfield aren't winning this cup. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. And it becomes about the day out, and it becomes about the finances they get, and it can be a lifesaver. You talk to fans, I don't know, Newport County and the runs that they had there in the cups and how important they were. There could be it might not be that romantic to look at it that way, but I don't think that's the worst idea in the world, is it?
No, I don't think they're going to be banging your door down for it, but I do like it.
No, listen, I'll never be head of the FA. We all know that.
I mean, I would say I love you, but I think that is unlikely. Yeah. I mean, you dream your dream.
Good night.
Dream your dream, Colin.
Listen, my dream definitely isn't being head of a football organisation. It's running a chocolate factory. Everybody knows that. You have a good night, mate.
Take care, mate. Cheers.
News and sport now before weeknights. Here's Sergio Sarker.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Thank you, Colin. Good evening. The TV channel GB News is suspending 2 of its presenters after they made derogatory remarks about a female journalist while on air. One is actor Lawrence Fox, who spoke about Ava Evans last night. The show's main anchor, Dan Wootton, has also been temporarily removed. Police in South London are questioning a 17-year-old boy on suspicion of murder after a 15-year-old girl was stabbed to death. She was on her way to school when the attack happened in Croydon this morning. A new report says around 1 in 6 species in the UK is at risk of extinction. The State of Nature document is warning our countryside is now one of the most nature depleted on Earth. And Donald Trump is addressing striking car workers in Detroit this evening, his first public appearance since a judge in New York found he'd consistently overstated his wealth. Mr. Trump has already said he will appeal against the ruling, calling the judge deranged. In sport then, Hibernian have reached the semi-finals of the Scottish League Cup after a 4-2 home win over St Mirren. Aberdeen are also through after a 2-1 win at Ross County, while Rangers booked their place in the last 4 with a 4-0 win over Livingston. In the third round of the Carabao Cup, as you've been hearing, Alexander Isak scored the only goal of the game as Newcastle knocked out Manchester City. Liverpool needed to come from behind to beat Leicester 3-1. Everton hung on to beat Aston Villa 2-1 away. Also in the fourth round are Arsenal, Chelsea, West Ham, Fulham, Bournemouth and Blackburn. You can check out the draw for the fourth round of the League Cup on the BBC Sport website. It's just been made. Surrey will have to wait to be confirmed as the county champions after they were bowled out for 207 against Hampshire at the Ageas Bowl. Surrey's failure to reach 300 though may not matter, as Essex are stuttering on 125 for 4 against Northamptonshire, and if they don't reach 400 and claim 4 batting points, then Surrey will automatically be champions. And at the Rugby World Cup, Uruguay picked up their first win of the tournament. They beat Namibia 36 points to 26.
Colin Murray, Monday to Thursday, weeknights, BBC Radio 5 Live.
Hello everybody, welcome to Weeknights and 5 Live this Wednesday night. Last night I started the show talking about the show before on Monday night. Tonight I start the show talking about the show before on Tuesday night, which is a sign that we're having one hell of a week. Before we begin, I just want to big up all the late night listeners who were messaging in considerable numbers last night during and after our midnight meets, our new midnight meets with Howard Jones. So glad it connected as well as it did. He is a very, very nice human being, and he's seen those today because I've noticed he's been favouriting the tweets and stuff. Isn't that lovely? Nice one, everybody. Anyway, on with tonight, 2.5 hours, so much ahead. At midnight in America, of course, as always, 12 to 1 on a Wednesday. We begin with a really personal and poignant conversation with the Chief Medical Officer for the New York Fire Department, Dr. David Prezan. As we hear now that the same amount of firefighters have died after 9/11 as a result of tackling the horrors of 9/11, working at Ground Zero, that died on the day, and it's a number that's going to continue to grow. He's going to give us his expert story on that and his personal insight. Susan Del Percio has her work cut out. We've got Trump and a civil case that could cost him a fortune. A Democratic senator accused of bribery in a story suitable for Hollywood, plus a government shutdown and another Republican debate. And on the subject of Hollywood stories, the writer's strike is at an end. We're going to be talking to a young screenwriter about what the last 5 months have been like without the money and being in the picket line. And also Usher has been named as the Super Bowl halftime show for 2024. Greg Brady will talk to us about that, the one and only time that anyone in the world will ask Greg Brady for his opinion on Usher. So we will try and fit all that in. 11 to 12, very exciting indeed. You might remember we set this up on air recently in a conversation with Melinda Herring, where we both felt like we needed to create space, and 3 special guests are going to join us at 11 with winter coming in Ukraine to try and pull everything you read in here and see about Ukraine, all those headlines of advances and retreats, of dragon's teeth and landmines, of Crimea and Poland, and just pull it all together and try and make sense of where we are and where we're heading, because here comes the rain again. We're looking at that harsh winter setting in soon. Those fields turn to mud, so that should be compelling. And when that's done, we're actually going to revisit our Monday night fan club, midnight to 1. This week was just magic. Listener Tracy wanted an hour on the legend that is Prince. And we ended up with 4 guests who knew him, worked with him, played with him, recorded with him, loved him, or a mixture of some or all of those things. And it was a glorious hour. So we put together this little abridged weeknight special 15-minute mix of that, because it so deserves to be replayed again. Of course, you can listen to the whole thing in BBC Sounds, but we're going to set that to music tonight. We're very, very proud of that hour. It was great indeed. So all that is to come tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We never take it for granted. I can't wait to spend the evening together and have so many different types of conversations with you. But we'll get started, of course, by looking back on a couple of key news stories of the day, and we're going to begin with this.
The gas will be used domestically, as has been set out. In terms of the oil, it gets exported initially, but overall the UK is a net importer of oil, so much of that makes its way back here. So this, I think, is an important thing that's happened today. It's good for energy security, it's good for jobs and investment in this country, and overall it means lower emissions.
The oil and gas that we get out of Rosebank, that won't be owned by the British public or the government. It's going to be owned by the company that gets it out the ground, the oil and gas companies. And they'll simply sell it on international markets to the highest bidder.
This is the news that the UK oil and gas regulator has given the go-ahead to develop the UK's biggest untapped oil field off Shetland. And as you can hear, there are many different opinions. Energy Secretary Claire Coutinho and Jess Ralston, the head of energy at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, given 2 varying different perspectives on the impact of that decision. Now, Rosebank is an oil and gas field about 80 miles northwest of Shetland, where I know we have some listeners, and one of the largest undeveloped discoveries in UK waters. So it's said to contain around sort of 300 million barrels of oil, and it's owned by the Norwegian energy giant Equinor and the British firm Ithaca. And Rachel Morrison's going to try and make sense of it all. She's an expert in power, gas and renewables at Bloomberg. Rachel, thank you for being here.
Hello.
So numbers, I'm big on numbers here, because it would produce 245 million barrels in the first 5 years, and then the remaining 55 million would take nearly 2 decades. So it would be between 2026 and 2030 if drilling starts in time. Is it about 8% of our total oil production?
Yeah, that's right. This, although it's a new field, it's not huge. And when you put it in the context of what the UK consumes, it's not very much at all. And as you mentioned, because the North Sea is quite mature and we've tapped a lot of the sources, what we are getting to now, what these kind of new licenses are for, and what this project is, are these sort of older fields. The best ones have been done, as it were. So this one, that's why, it tails off towards the end of the production life. So we can sort of conclude there's not that much oil there in the sort of grand scheme of the UK's needs.
Yeah. Now, CO2 emissions from 300 million barrels of oil, that's very easy to find out if you go to Carbon Brief. So that's about 300 million barrels of oil in CO2 emissions. It's equivalent of the annual emissions of 400 million people. So there's another stat worth to put into your mind, the context in terms of the CO2 emissions. But Rachel, where oil is harvested, if that's the right word, where oil is pulled up from a seabed or from the ground, is actually not hugely important in terms to where it's sold, and also key to Great Britain, where it's refined. So tell me a little bit about the life of these barrels once they're pulled out of the North Sea.
Yeah, that's right. When you look at emissions, you really need to take into account the emissions when the fuel's burnt, which when you see those really low figures for emissions, they're not including that. So we sort of think that when you include the carbon dioxide, it's around 85% of the emissions of an average liquefied natural gas cargo. So a sort of equivalent other type of source of energy that you could use. So that argument that it's low emissions oil is a slightly difficult one to make. But yes, you're right. When the oil is extracted, the crude oil, it does have to be refined. And in recent years, the UK has lost quite a lot of its refining capacity. So we may be able to refine some oil, not even necessarily this oil, but we do import a lot of our refined products because we just don't have that capacity anymore. It's been closed over time.
So it's pulling up 300 million barrels between now and 2050. The projection is that fossil fuel demand will fall by 80% by 2050. That hasn't been released today as a reaction to that. That's a separate stat that I was able to find and verify, in particular with the International Energy Agency. So the oil drilled off the coast, possibly not refined here. Certainly we don't have the capacity to refine it all. Some of it coming back here, other parts of it being sold elsewhere. So that's the reality of what's going to happen to it. The key question, which we can ask with a very calm, straightforward mind, is why. So why is it attractive to use that oil, to exploit that oil? Is it, and I ask this as a genuine question, Rachel Morrison, is it because it's 75% tax with a windfall tax for these companies, but if they invest here, and this will create over 1,000 jobs initially and 450 over all of the time, they only pay 9p to the pound, don't they? They get to claim back 91p of every pound invested. So from a business point of view, that's manna from heaven, isn't it?
Yeah, the tax relief is obviously a huge benefit. And at the time, there was some talk over whether, that tax benefit should just be on green investment rather than fossil fuel investment. But one of the other benefits is that when you look at the North Sea, the infrastructure is already there. Once you get the oil out of the sea, you can get it to shore, which is, a big cost if the platform is too far out at sea. So it's kind of a known entity, this area, and these companies already have infrastructure there they can use. So that does lower the cost for them. I mean, the cost of this project is huge, several billion. But it's a sort of long history and tradition of the North Sea being this wonderful source of fossil fuels, and the world has somewhat moved on from that. But a lot of the licenses that are granted by the government don't end up coming to anything. This one, the license was granted, years ago, and only now they're kind of bringing it to fruition. So it's difficult to get this oil out of the ground, and that's sort of baked into the price, really, of the cost of the project.
You're an expert in power and gas and renewables, so pull that together 360 for me. So one point of view put across today is that this breaks somewhat a small part of the reliance on oil coming from such places as Russia. But we have talked through how it's sold on a global level, of course, on a global platform. Environmentalists say that's a 2 + 2 = 5 argument, because to reach the target of 1.5% by 2050, that no new fossil fuels should be mined, whether you offset it or not. So where's the rub for you when you sort of put all of the very complicated factors together?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about it is that, the government are very much making the case that this creates energy security for the UK. But at the moment, there's no guarantee that the oil that comes from this project would be used in the UK. We might export it. There's no kind of control over that, as it were. So I'm not sure, for me, the energy security angle really stacks up. I think it's about kind of maintaining that status of the UK. And I think it doesn't really provide that much energy security, because we do still import. And the best energy security you can get is to stop using fossil fuels and to rely on things that, like wind and solar, that you don't need to import anything for. So I think that argument doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The jobs, I mean, they're not a huge number of jobs, and we hear a lot about green growth and that being a better way to grow the economy. I think it comes at quite an interesting moment when we've had a bit of rowing back from the government anyway on several green measures last week. And this kind of cements that position of the Conservatives of being more about energy security and fossil fuels and what we know than kind of trying to push forward into this green future of wind turbines and electric vehicles.
Yeah, I read something today from somebody who said these actually may not and likely are not connected, but in the public's eye of how they consume media, they very much do look like they are, which is really interesting. Now, Rachel, that's complicated, but not as complicated as antimatter, which I'm about to talk about now. You don't have any knowledge? You can't help me out here at all?
I think you're going to have to help me here.
Oh, my goodness me. It's one of those stories, if you do not have an expert guest, you can't talk about it, just like this. So Rachel Morrison, expert at Bloomberg, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we do love a good science or space story on this programme. So when you combine both together, we're kind of in heaven. But I don't mind admitting, I left school at 16 and all I wanted to be was a journalist. I went on a YTP scheme to a local newspaper. So I have my expertise, but science is just, there's 8-year-old kids out there with more knowledge. So I love when we do these stories. I learn all the time. But I'll be the first to admit I've absolutely no idea what a lot of it is. I start so far down. I spend more time reading about this today than anything else we'll cover. And it's antimatter. So scientists at CERN, the Particle Research Centre in Geneva, have published the results of an experiment to see if if antimatter falls down or up. Believe it or not, this is a very, very important question. So what is antimatter? Well, according to my magic box, it's matter consisting of elementary particles, which are the antiparticles of those making up normal matter. It's used in the medical field, but, antiprotons, I think, have been used to treat some types of cancer. But actually getting antimatter is like hen's teeth. That's been part of it, being able to capture enough of it to do these type of experiments. And why do we need to know this? Well, it confirms some stuff that people like Einstein predicted, but also can explain how the universe arose in the first place. Thank goodness we have the science correspondent at The Guardian, Hannah Devlin, to shut me up at this stage. Hi, Hannah.
Hi. Thanks for having me on.
Do you know what I mean, though? It's one of those that you're going to really have to dumb it down for me. So antimatter and matter, the Big Bang, and how matter got the better of antimatter, is that where we kind of start?
Yeah, so physics theory, at least, suggests that at the Big Bang, there ought to have been the same amount of matter, which is just the usual stuff that you or I, and basically everything we know is made of, and then this other mysterious substance called antimatter, which is almost like a mirror version of matter. So every particle that you have in ordinary matter, protons, neutrons, electrons, there's a kind of mirror version of antimatter, where some of the properties are flipped over, but they're basically like the same. And the thing is, when antimatter meets matter, it annihilates each other. So because our world is basically all matter, whenever any antimatter gets made, it almost immediately kind of gets disappeared again. So we've not had that much chance to study it. Well, scientists haven't had that much chance to study its properties in the way that they have with ordinary matter.
Mm. So the big stories reading today was, most notably Albert Einstein in the general theory of relativity, which is over 100 years ago, said that antimatter should behave like matter and fall downwards. And am I right in saying this is the first time that science has been able to say with a degree of certainty he's right? Part A to that question, and B, if you could just go a bit deeper into the research and what it means.
Yeah, so Einstein himself predicted that antimatter should behave in this way, and that basically everything, that gravity should have the same effect on everything, no matter what it is, basically. But nevertheless, there's been this idea that perhaps antimatter might behave differently, and it's a bit of a fringe theory, but some people have thought perhaps if antimatter fell upwards, basically, if it was repelled by the gravitational force, that might explain why we don't see any antimatter. Perhaps at the beginning of the universe, little pockets of antimatter formed, but we just can't see it in our part of the universe. So there has been this question still, and because it's never been measured directly, it's never really gone away. There's been this sort of lingering doubt about what happened. And so this is the first time that scientists have actually basically put antimatter in a little tube and watched it falling and confirmed that it does seem to behave basically like normal matter and fall downwards.
So many questions, Hannah. Thank you for humouring me here. But how did they trap the antimatter Professor Jeffrey Hangst and his team? Because I think I read it's something like it took 30 years to build a facility just to, if the right word is, trap the antimatter to do the scientific research.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, as I mentioned, one of the big issues is that it gets annihilated as soon as it comes into contact with ordinary matter. So this team has been spending decades refining ways of capturing it. The experiment involved cooling it to almost down to absolute zero so that it can be very carefully controlled so that it's not moving around too much through sort of thermal vibrations and creating special traps to keep it contained until they, just to give them enough time to make even a simple measurement of something falling. So, it involved